and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around the virtual water cooler with us, as that seems to be the only place we can gather around right now, to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, joining me on this glorious Monday, of course, is one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, you know, I haven't stopped working. I've just been working on these special features here, and I feel like I'm a little production monkey, getting all the wrenches out and tightening all the screws and bolts and delivering the goodness. So I feel like nothing has changed in my life. I just never leave my Robservatory.
Not that you leave the Robservatory very much anyway. And you're working on the special edition of your for the Blu-ray, right?
Yes,
are you allowed to talk about that?
Well, yeah, no, I absolutely can. It was Amazon. It was very funny. Scream Factory had not announced it, and Amazon put it up for pre-order before Scream Factory had announced that it was coming.
Oh my God, seriously?
Yeah. This was last week. And I'm like, well, okay, the cat's out of the bag. But yeah, I'm doing 12 pieces for it. That's probably about 2.5 hours. And then director Dave Parker, I'm handling all the behind-the-scenes stuff for when the movie was originally shot, because I shot about 24 hours worth of behind-the-scenes material. And then director Dave Parker has gone back and done new interviews about the impact of the film, and he's done a couple of really cool commentaries with some other well-known filmmakers about the movie and what it means. And it's the stuff he's been doing is really cool, and it's going to be, I mean, it's our little movie, but it's going to have an incredible, if you want to know how movies are made, it's an incredible package.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all the stuff you're doing, because I know you've been excited about it. And listen, guys, we have a number of things to talk about here today. But before we go into those things, I need to give this disclaimer, because inevitably every day I do get messages from people, irate, angry people writing to me. It's like, yeah, it's crazy, right? Irate, angry people on the internet. Who knew? Anyway, every day I'm getting people writing me this, so I feel like I do need to give this disclaimer at the top of every show. Listen, obviously, during today's show, one or two issues are going to cross over with the whole situation going out with the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. Let me just say up front, we understand there are more important things in the world than how the coronavirus is affecting our movie watching. I get that. I understand that. But movie watching and TV watching is what our show is about. So we discuss it within the confines of those parameters of within the movie. So that's how we discuss it. We understand that there are bigger problems associated with the coronavirus. We know that, but this is the place here that we talk about it within these parameters. So just want to give that little disclaimer off the top with that. So there are a number of things, guys, that we're going to be talking about here today. We're going to be talking about the box office this weekend and how abysmal it was. What should Disney do with Onward right now, because it's having some problems as well. You guys, a lot of us are stuck at home right now. What should we be watching? What are some untapped gems that we should be watching? Rob and I are going to be talking about that and a couple of things more. So let's get things started with our main topics. Now, how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics by simply going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission as one of the featured topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Sam Skywalker, who writes, "Hey, John, I think amid the coronavirus hysterics, everybody has forgotten about Onward. It bombed. Yes, it has earned just $102 million globally after 10 days, and Forbes predicts that the final to stand at around $140 million on a near $200 million budget. What do you think about this situation, and how do you think it will affect Disney and Pixar?" All right, thanks a lot for sending in the question, man. And in the midst of all these high-profile projects being pushed back and pushed off their release dates and you know, theaters closing, we'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. One of the high-profile films that got into theaters before everything started going crazy was, of course, the Pixar film Onward. It just had its second weekend. It did, I mean, for most films, it did okay in its first weekend, made over $40 million on its first weekend, which is fine for most pictures, but it was the third lowest opening ever for a Pixar film. And now it's had its second weekend, and Rob, not only was its second weekend a 72% drop at the box office overall had the lowest box office weekend in over 20 years. Let's take a look at the top 5 of the box office. Onward came in at number 1, making $10.5 million at the box office. And Rob, what did I tell you? What did I tell you about the Bloodshot, The Hunt coming out? And I said, you know what? I think If I Still Believe can make around $10 million. I think it might beat those other two films.
You said that.
And sure enough, it did. I Still Believe, the faith-based film, made $9.5 million at the box office. Bloodshot came in at $9.3 on its opening weekend. The Invisible Man made another $6 million. That movie just made money hand over fist. And then, of course, The Hunt came in at $5.3 million. Now, obviously, when we're talking about Onward, I should say, when we're talking about Onward and its total collapse at the box office in its second weekend, you have to put a giant asterisk beside that, obviously. This is also a big, this has a lot more to do with the coronavirus than anything else, because people liked Onward. Onward's a good movie. Onward's a very enjoyable movie. I don't believe Onward is a top tier Pixar film, but a very, very good Pixar film nonetheless. It took a 72% drop. That is just disastrous by any stretch of the imagination. But again, obviously, the situation going on with the coronavirus obviously had a lot to do with that. Obviously, also had a lot to do with Bloodshot's results, had a lot to do with The Hunt's results. Not that I was thinking Bloodshot or The Hunt was going to make much more than they did anyway. The Hunt isn't all that good, to be honest with you. So, but still, overall, clearly it had a massive impact. When it comes to the question, though, Rob, about how will this affect Disney and Pixar, they're going to take a big loss on this. And that's not something Disney or their subdivision Pixar is accustomed to taking, big losses, but they're going to take a big loss on this. We'll talk about what maybe they can do with Onward moving forward a little bit later in the show. But Rob, for now, you see these numbers. What's your response to them? And what effect, if any, do you think this is going to have on Disney and or Pixar?
Well, obviously, John, as you pointed out, this is a very different experience than anybody's ever had before. This is not an indication of the film. It's not an indication of the movie-going audience. I mean, the world is being systematically shut down as far as entertainment is concerned. And I don't think anybody, while this is an unprecedented situation, like you said, this is always going to have an asterisk next to it. You can't judge this by any normal standard. You just can't, because we're in a situation that is unprecedented. No one's ever seen it before. But what it is, it's a microcosm or a macrocosm as far as Disney is concerned as to where Hollywood is at right now. And I don't know what can be done. I mean, Disney has obviously Disney streaming, maybe the fact that Onward, they dropped Frozen 2, they dropped Rise of Skywalker on video, both of those movies early. And I think that the world is just going to come to grips. This is just another example of how this entire planet is now being tested and has to figure out how they're going to move forward with business as usual. This could be, we might lose our summer movie season entirely, depending on how this thing shakes out. And it's unprecedented. But as Anti-Entity said in Beyond Thunderdome, we will rebuild.
One of the things that I actually found kind of stunning, to be honest with you, is that the box office still made $55 million this week.
Dude, I know, right?
I honestly thought it would be a lot less than that. Because you're right. You're absolutely right. It is staggering to see an Onward with a 72% drop and none of the other movies even making $10 million. Absolutely, that is shocking. But honestly, given the current situation, when I saw that it still overall made over $55 million, like the box office itself made over $55 million, I was quite surprised. I thought that was a high number.
I thought it was a high number too, but to be fair, the way the movie theaters took really interesting precautions. Like they were cutting their attendance in various auditoriums by half so people could have enough distance between them, recommended distance that doctors and the CDC has recommended to keep people away from you. I thought that was a really unique solution and they're trying to stay in business. It's not just, I mean, and good for them because of all their employees. I mean, people that live paycheck to paycheck, like you pointed out astutely last week on the show, movie theaters don't have a huge margin of profit. They're not operating at a huge margin of profit. So they tried, man. They tried, and people didn't want to. You want to come out and not listen to this stuff anymore. You want to put some joy in your head. Go see Onward. Pixar is always going to put a smile on your face. I think people went. People did as much as they could. The theaters did as much as they could, but not anymore. At least, certainly not in New York and L.A.
Well, we'll talk about that in just a second. So the question here is, guys, what do you think about this drop? Obviously, a massive part of this has to do with the global situation with the virus and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe you thought, you know what? I didn't think Onward was that good. I thought it would take a bunch of a drop anyway. I don't know. How are you feeling about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Kyle Arking, who writes, "Hi, John and Rob. Since there will be no major releases opening in the next month or so, do you think the theaters will just close? I'll just be rewatching Bond films at home until No Time to Die comes out. Thank you, and I wish you both a great day." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And that has been a big question that we've been kind of debating and discussing for the last week or so. Now, of course, as Rob just alluded to, we discussed late last week, that the major movie theater chains in North America, AMC and Regal, made the step to limit their capacity of their theaters to 50%, up to a maximum of 250 people. So if you had a movie theater that was 600 people large, you wouldn't get 50%. They would max it 250. Otherwise, they'd max it out at 50%. Hopefully encouraging social distancing, increasing all that kind of stuff. But the question remained, should they, instead of, say, taking a step like 50% cut, which, by the way, does drastically reduce your odds of getting sick or getting contagious by going to the movie theaters, reducing the capacity to 50% does drastically reduce that, but the risk was still there. And so the debate emerged and came out, and a lot of us discussed, and Rob, I know you, me, and Aaron even hung around a bunch after the show discussing about the merits of still having the movie theaters open or not. And so the question became, should theaters just stay open? Now, in relation to the last topic we just discussed, the theaters took a beating this past weekend, making the lowest amount at the box office in over 20 years. Still managing to pull together $55 million, but still lowest that they've seen in 20 years. Should the theaters close down? Well, in some parts of the world, we already knew that that decision was being taken out of their hands, but now it's come home. As in New York and Los Angeles, the two biggest, most important pop culturally cities in North America, have made the decision that at least for a few weeks, movie theaters are being forced to close. Movie theaters are being forced to close. And it raises an interesting question, Rob, about the notion of should we still be going to theaters and putting public health over the interest of other certain factors, about whether this is a good idea. Now, listen, I am of the opinion, and some people didn't like that I felt this way, but I do, and if you don't like that, oh well. I was of the opinion that I had no problem, some concern, but no problem that theaters were deciding to stay open with extra precautions and extra measures to try to keep everybody safe. And if there are some people that still chose that they wanted to be able to go to the movie theaters, so be it. However, that being said, I was also very, very fine with the idea of a theaters wanting to close in this situation. And Rob, a very interesting situation, or a very interesting kind of report came out over on the Washington Post. And over on the Washington Post, they basically put together this simulation. Now follow me, guys. This is why I think and how it relates to movie theaters being closed down, all right? This simulation that the Washington Post put out, it basically suggests this. And this was a thing that they had put together, or that they had shared with everybody. Now imagine they said you have a town, and we'll see, I'll show you why this connects directly in with movie theaters and movie theaters being shut down. But I thought this was fascinating. You see on the screen a bunch of dots, right? And we're about to start a new simulation. The teal dots represent healthy people. The brown or crap colored dots are sick people. And the purple dots are those who have recovered. And you'll see the chart up near the top there of what happens over time. So this is a simulation of what happens if a town of 200 people just don't engage in any social distancing. Okay, everybody just keeps moving around and living their lives as normal. Here's what happens. So it starts off, you see the chart time passing, and you can see as the infected dots come into contact with healthy dots, the healthy dots start to turn to the brown shit color. Now, eventually, the brown dots start to recover. That's the purple dots. But you see very, very quickly in the chart that there's no healthy people left. Everybody quickly got infected, right? So imagine now in a movie theater, and with the survival rate, that means if you were in a movie theater of 200 people and the lights went off and suddenly the lights came on again, that means 4 to 5 to 6 people would just be dead in your theater, right? So that's with no social distancing. Now, then they tried a simulation here of what happens if you have a little bit of forced quarantine. Well, forced quarantine doesn't really work all that much because you see the sick people are on one side. But what happens is the reason the box is now open is because that represents that eventually people get out of the quarantine area. And if everybody just keeps moving around at their own rate, you can see at the chart at the top, the infection rate slows down, but look at the numbers of recovered, healthy, and sick. Eventually, boom, 0 healthy. Everybody got it, and eventually everybody recovers, but I mean, you're going to have a fatality rate. Then they put out another simulation. And this is, okay, what happens if 3/4 of the population decides to not move around socially? 3/4 of the population decides to stay put, and 1/4 of the population, because you can see a bunch of the dots just aren't moving at all, right? This is a simulation of what happens if 3/4 of the people decide to engage in social distancing. Well, look what happens. The spread of this thing reduces drastically, and the recovery rate starts to catch up with the people getting sick rate. Now watch what happens by the time the time counter runs out. Boom, you still have 79 healthy people. So then they did one last one where it's like, okay, forget 3/4. What happens if 8 out of every 10 people stay home? 8 out of every 10 people engage in social distancing. What happens then? This is what happens. As you can see, there are much fewer dots moving around. And there are still people getting sick, but look at the rate. And look at the rate of recovery compared to the rate of people getting sick. It's enormously smaller. It's enormously smaller. And eventually what happens, look at the time, we're getting near the end of the clock. The amount of recovered people exceeds the amount of sick people, and we still ended up with 150 people. 3/4 of the people didn't even get it. Rob, the reason I found this so fascinating when I came across this chart was that this basically does represent a nice microcosm. If we as a society and moviegoers, let's limit this to the whole movie theater industry and us as moviegoers. If all of us stay just as active as ever, well, what's going to happen is it's inevitable. It's science. It's math. Everybody's going to get this thing. Everybody's going to get sick. And eventually most people will recover, but a lot of people won't. There's going to be a good chunk of people that don't. But when a bunch of us engage in social distancing and say, you know what, we're going to completely minimize our movements for a couple of weeks. We're going to stay hunkered down. We're only going to go on what's absolutely necessary. We're not going to go into large crowds, blah, blah, blah. When we do that, yeah, some people are still going to get it, but it's going to limit it massively. So, Rob, while I personally didn't have a big problem with the idea of movie theaters trying to take extra steps, trying to keep everybody as safe as possible and yet stay open, it's also kind of a common sense thing to shut it down. As a matter of fact, in Los Angeles alone, too, they just also announced all restaurants have to close. They can still do pickup and takeout and delivery service, but restaurants have to close, too. To me, it sort of seems like the faster all of us embrace this whole social distancing thing, the faster we're going to get past this crap and we can just get back to life. That's what it seems like to me. So to me, it seems like a common sense thing. Rob, you heard about the fact that LA has shut down movie theaters. New York has shut down movie theaters. I'm sure other major cities are going to be sure to follow. What do you think of the move and how do you think this is going to impact things overall?
Well, John, I have to say I've kind of found this whole response and how quickly it's happened to be rather, I don't know, uplifting, if that makes any sense, because people hunkered down. They immediately look. There are those idiots that bought lots of toilet paper. Why? It's not like you got food poisoning. What do you need lots of toilet paper for? I don't know. But the fact that people embraced this, they did what was needed to be done quickly, has been rather uplifting to me. I'm like, you know what? People did what they need to do. I've watched so many videos, like in Italy, that one guy playing John Lennon's Imagine on the trumpet on his deck, in Rome or someplace, and everybody's listening to him. I've found all of this very enlightening. What has disappointed me sometimes is seeing, like, St. Patrick's Day, you had a lot of younger people going out. What people need to understand is you might not be at risk of dying, but you still become a disease vector. If you're a young person in your 20s, and obviously there's not a big fatality rate, that doesn't mean you don't get the disease and you don't become an incubator that spreads it. And that's been a little disheartening. But I think that what everybody did, normally everybody does everything for money. This social distancing is the amount of money that it is costing the world is, I think, incalculable.
It's insane.
And to see that everybody has just nope. They alleviated. They have taken a moratorium in California on evictions if you can't pay your rent. They've stopped any eviction proceedings, which I was like, that's amazing. And everybody from all walks of life at every level, whether it's businesses or on the personal level, have banded together to do something. And you know what? I'm like, well, let's do this with global warming when this is all over. Or let's do this and solve all of the problems of the world and do it the way, you suddenly put someone's actual health, like if they're going to die, well, all of the long-term problems, like let's say pollution. Why don't we solve all of the problems this way? Because it proved to me that humanity can pretty much do anything when called upon. And I think that's pretty uplifting. So good on humanity.
Yeah, I heard one doctor say something very interesting that just makes sense, but I hadn't really thought of it that way before. They said, you want to know the best way to stop this thing from affecting, and just the best way for us to all get past this thing really quick? Everybody's worried about, what do I need to do to not get sick? He said, this is the attitude everybody should have. Imagine you are sick. Let's just assume you've already got it. How are you going to conduct yourself if you've already got it? Well, most people aren't assholes. There are a lot of assholes, but most people aren't assholes. And most people are going to be like, man, if I'm sick, I need to make sure I don't get other people sick. Like, that's how most people would think. If I'm sick, I bet most of the people watching the show right now, everybody at home is like, no, if they were sick, they would go, you know what? Oh, geez, I do want to run and go some of the movies, but I don't want to get anybody else sick. So I'm just going to stay at home and wait this thing out. If more people took on the attitude that I've already got it, we'll probably beat this thing a lot faster and get back to life. Maybe instead of like 2 months, maybe get back to regular life in like the next 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a doctor or anything like that, but it is interesting seeing a move like this and how it does directly affect the movie theaters and the movie going industry. And listen, I said it before, I will say it again. This whole thing, there's no good way to sugarcoat this. This is going to be cataclysmic for the movie theater industry. This is going to be
all of Hollywood, John.
Oh, yeah, all of Hollywood. But, we've talked specifically about the theaters and how they have a razor thin profit margin as is. There's going to be a recovery time needed here for the entire industry. That's for sure. Guys, question is, you hear about the closing of the theaters. What do you think? Do you think that's maybe going a little bit overboard? Or are you thinking, no, that makes total common sense? How do you feel about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Michael Hirschauer, who writes, do you think it would be a good idea for Disney to release Onward on Disney Plus? Might help get people to sign up with all the possible quarantining we might have to do. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Michael. And yeah, we started to allude to this a little bit earlier in the earlier topic because, of course, Onward is tanking. Much not to do with its own fault. It's not its own fault. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on, but the bottom line is Onward is tanking. That's the reality that they need to deal with right now. So the question becomes, what should they do in response to it tanking? And one thing that a lot of people have been bringing up and suggesting is, what Disney should do is they should take Onward right now and move it over to Disney Plus right now. I mean, because it's not going to do much more at the box office as it is, because this situation isn't getting any better in the next week or two. So they might as well just move it over to Disney now. Now, the one big reason why you won't see that happen is because Disney has contractual obligations that says once they put this movie in the theaters, they can't put it on any kind of home streaming service till 3 months after the movie debuted in theaters. So let's just be clear about that right up front, that as things stand right now, contractually speaking, Disney doesn't really have a choice. They can't just take it and put it on home streaming right now, at least not without the consent and the sign off of the movie theaters. But let's put that, the contractual obligations notwithstanding, let's put that issue aside for a second. And let's just deal with the theoretical question. If there weren't contractual issues and obligations to get in the way, should Disney take Onward, realizing, hey, we're not going to make much money in theaters as it is, maybe we should just put it on Disney Plus and reap some benefit? Now, a lot of people are going to instantly say, yes, they should. I'm going to take the other side of that, though. Even if the movie theaters came to Disney right now, Rob, and said, we're waiving all your contractual obligations to us to keep it off home video for 3 months, and we're going to let you put it on Disney Plus if you want. I'm going to suggest that it's still not a good move for Disney to do that, and I will tell you why. Because I believe there is an opportunity here. I believe there may be an opportunity here, Rob, for Disney with their Onward picture to still make some bank on this money, and I'll tell you how. Number one, we already saw that the movie, even with everything going on this weekend, it still made $10 million. It still made $10 million. That's $10 million they wouldn't have had if they hadn't had it in there. I'm going to tell you this too. I think what Disney should do instead of just rushing it onto Disney Plus, and where they can make more money, is if they say, you know what? In response to everything that's going on, we are pulling our movie out of theaters. We're going to pull it out of theaters. And then in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, announce a triumphant relaunch of the movie in theaters. When theaters are all, however long it takes for all the theaters to become reopened en masse, and they say, to commemorate this reopening of theaters, Onward, back in theaters near you. You didn't get a chance to see it before, but we're going to make sure you can see it now. And I absolutely 1,000% guarantee you, they will reap a lot more benefits doing it that way than they would by just tossing in the proverbial towel and say, okay, well, let's just throw it on Disney Plus. Now, there are benefits to putting it directly on Disney Plus too. I mean, that could encourage some people who haven't already signed up to Disney Plus to maybe become new subscribers. There would be a little bit of benefit there for that. Absolutely. But I think the overall benefit of just holding off, riding this out, do a triumphant relaunch in theaters. They're not going to make another $100 million or anything, but they'll make a bunch. And then put it out on Disney Plus when the time is right. I think, so Rob, I'm going to sit here and maybe say the unpopular thing. I think even if it wasn't for the contractual obligations to the theaters, I still think they should just not rush it to Disney Plus right now. I just think there's a better business case for it. But Rob, there's probably many other ways of looking at it. So how would you see that? Let's say Bob Iger is still giving you a call. Even though he's not CEO anymore, he's still chairman of the board. And he says, hey, listen, Burnett, I got this. I'm struggling here. The theaters say we can release it on Disney Plus now if we want. Should we? Should we not? What wise counsel is Rob the Gray going to be giving to Bob Iger?
Well, first of all, people have to understand that every movie that's made is like a singular business unto itself. It's its own LLC. Call it what you want. So when they're making a movie like a Pixar film and they spend $200 million on it, it's not like Disney, contrary to popular belief, is sitting on $200 million of liquid cash. They just, dig underneath their castle and say, here's the money to make it. All movies, they're borrowing money. They have interest payments. They've got to get that money paid back because it costs a lot of money. And so they're expecting, because they know from Pixar's previous films what the analytics are, vaguely. They know how much money that they can expect to get that money, the initial money that was made to used to make the movie, to pay that money back. So when a movie like this underperforms at the box office, it's not just detrimental in the near term, but in the long term as well, because those interest payments don't get paid back, or they have to get paid back somehow. So a movie like this not making its money back is a big problem. It's a big problem. And unfortunately, there was nothing, it wasn't the fault of the film. So they have to figure out, well, how can we make this up? I think your idea is a good one, but I also think that we're in a little bit of uncharted territory. Well, a lot of uncharted territory.
Yeah.
I would be interested. You know how you have, your beloved MMA fights? I'm curious. What would a pay-per-view event for a first-run movie look like? Like, let's say they're like, Onward is not coming to theaters, but one night only or one weekend only. We're going to make it available. I guess it would have to be one time only. I know there's the piracy issue, because if something is broadcast, somebody can always pirate it. But what if you had like a $40 pay-per-view event and encourage families to go and come together, not in this case, because it would be everyone's socially distanced. So to launch a pay-per-view first run A-list movie, not in movie theaters, but to put it out not on streaming. The problem with putting things on streaming is there's no revenue being generated immediately by the movie itself. You're only putting it up on a streaming service, which is only generating revenue through subscriptions, your subscriber base. So what happens is when they make a movie like a Pixar movie, they can expect to make $750 to $1 billion off that movie that they're expecting for their coffers. But you put it up on Disney Plus, they get nothing. They only get whatever your subscribers are paying. The 28 million subscribers that Disney Plus has now at, $6 a month? Well, that doesn't give them any added revenue. That's the same amount of money as their Lady and the Tramp live action remake would make, which is exactly the same amount as Onward makes, which is only what their subscribers are paying. So they don't get any more money in the coffers, which is hugely detrimental when you've spent $200 million bucks. I mean, Netflix has a different model because they've already figured out. They're like, okay, we'll spend $165 million on The Irishman. We know that it's going to be worth it to us in the long run. But Disney Plus doesn't have that yet. It might. I mean, it might get there, but they've only got 28 million installed subscribers. So it's hard. But I would be curious. I mean, dude, if I had a first-run movie and I had the marketing budget to put it out, I would try it just to see what would it be like. Like, what if I could get No Time to Die as a worldwide pay-per-view event, although I don't even know if they have the distribution methods over the internet to be able to deliver that. But it would be interesting to see. And maybe they could do that with Onward.
I have two outcomes that will happen if they did that. Outcome number one, it's financial suicide. It's financial suicide, and I'll tell you why. You brought up MMA, and I talked about this very thing on Open Mic this weekend. So let's look at the MMA model, right?
See, I don't know anything about revenue for this.
Right. So here's where you get into trouble. So let's take your model of, like, say, a $40 pay-per-view featured premiere event, right? So what happens is when a big UFC is coming on, I've got a bunch of friends that we all love watching. You know, whenever there's a big UFC, I have people come over, we all watch UFC, right? Because It's so expensive, $40, $50, $60, not everybody just gets it. What happens is one guy gets it, and then everybody comes over to my place, and I've got 10, 15, 20 plus people here. I paid $40 for it, and now I got 20 people in my place, and we're all watching UFC, and that situation plays itself out across the country, right? One person gets it, 8 people come over. One person gets it, 6 people come over. One person gets it, 25 people come over. In my case, it's the higher number. So what happens now is, instead of, let's take our local theaters here, Rob, let's say an average ticket of let's say $15, which is low. $15. Instead of 10 people going to see the movie at $15 a pop, generating $150 in revenue, now we've got 15 people seeing it for $40. So now they've gone from $150 in potential revenue to $40. They've taken a $110 hit on the thing. And that is a scenario that I believe would play out across the world, that you'd get, you would get it and have 20 of your best friends over to come get together to watch No Time to Die. I would get it, have 10 people come over to watch No Time to Die. And they would end up making a fraction of the money that they would
I
if they
know.
were able to have a theatrical release. The other consequence is this. You and I both know that there is a very delicate symbiotic relationship between the studios and the movie theater industry. That is sometimes very contentious, but always in balance, as all things should be. There's always a balance there, right?
Like with the Force.
Like with the Force. The moment that, say, the studios decide that they are going to, because let's call it what it is. This would be effing over the theaters. This would be effing them over.
Oh, no, it absolutely would be.
Yeah. So, and we can go, oh, who cares? Here's the thing, though. The theater, having worked in that system before, I used to work with AMC, and having been there to hear some high-level conversations, I guarantee you that the moment the studios decide to F over the theaters, the whole NATO organization, North American Theater Owners, NATO, not the other NATO, NATO, the North American Theater Organization is all going to get together and go, okay, you wanted to fuck us over? Get ready. Because when it's going to hurt you the most, studios, we're going to F you over. And maintaining that balance, right? It's a very, very complex, convoluted, almost delicate ballet that these guys have to do. Because on the one hand, it does seem to make sense. Look, Onward, of course, it's not making money in theaters right now. Let's figure out a way to do some home streaming for it and make a little bit of money. But the issues go far deeper than that, right? And it's tough because the movie theaters are also like, listen, we sell the movie tickets and we have people come into our theaters and you take 2/3 of it. So this got to be, so it's a very delicate, weird situation. And again, we're talking about what can actually happen as opposed to what should happen, because maybe there should be mechanisms, but it's because I had the same thought, Rob. I just don't know how you work around it. I just don't know how you work around it.
That's very astute of you to point out. I mean, I kind of was just thinking in terms of where we're at now, because this is a unique situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, and I don't want to watch first run movies in the privacy of my home, no matter how good my home theater system might evolve to becoming. I mean, the whole point is when you see movies, nothing is better than hearing a crowd respond to an awesome moment or laugh at a great joke or feel elated. Even if people aren't being necessarily vocal, you can feel the response from an audience. And that's part of the joy of going to the movies is knowing that you're connecting, even though you might not even know. One of my favorite things in the world, John, is people from all walks of life, no matter what they believe, no matter what their religious backgrounds are, their sexual preferences might be, their ethnic backgrounds, everybody will go into a movie theater together, and they will sit in the dark and they all feel the anticipation when the lights go down and when they're there to see a big spectacle of a movie, whether it's an Infinity War, an Endgame, or a Christopher Nolan Batman movie, or the new James Bond film. Everybody's there to do one thing, and that is to watch the latest movie in the theater. And everybody's got a smile on their face, and everybody is there for a singular purpose together. And how often do you get that? I mean, you get it maybe at a rock concert, but at a movie theater, and we're being told a story where people will shut up. Well, hopefully they'll shut up and turn off their phones for 2 hours. And you when you feel everybody responding to a kick-ass action scene or a great joke, it's like, this is humanity, man. This is the power of storytelling and the power of movies and why films are important. And I don't ever want that to go away.
Yeah, to your point, though, the example I always bring up about listen, I've got a nice home theater system. I got a really nice 75-inch TV above the fireplace, good sound.
Yeah.
I get it, but it's crap compared to a real movie theater. And the example I always bring up is, listen, Avengers Endgame, it's still really good. If the first time you saw Avengers Endgame was at home alone, it's still really good.
Right.
But everybody, think for a moment back to the first time you sat in the theater watching Avengers Endgame. And that moment, Mjolnir flies by Thanos and flies by Thor, and it ends up in Captain America's hand as he catches it and then turns back to the screen.
Dude, I'm getting chills just hearing you say that.
Remember the reaction in the theater. I was in there with my brother-in-law, Ray. And Ray was beside me. This was like my second or third viewing of it. And it was still opening weekend. And Ray was beside me. And beside us was this dad and his kid. And like Ray and this kid were like, oh, looking at each other, going, oh, and like high-fiving each other. And you see people, complete strangers in movie theaters, like raising their arms together and celebrate, or laughing at a joke, or jumping in fear, or something like that. There's just nothing beats the theater-going experience. Nothing beats it. And that's why guys like Tarantino and Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg talk so passionately about that experience. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there are other options. And don't get me wrong, I like still watching Endgame at home. I do. I still like popping on Endgame and watching it. But it sucks compared to being in the theater with 150 other people and the portals open and having one go, you wanted more? And everybody laughing together. I mean, it's just, there's nothing like it. Nothing can replace it. And I don't know. I get wound up when we start talking about this. Because you know, Rob, every day that I wake up, and I've said this before on the show, every day that I wake up that I know I'm going to the movies later that day, it just starts the day off good for me. I just feel like this is a good day. I'm going to the movies later. I don't know, and it's going to be a shame if we lose that. Anyway, we got way off track. We got way off track on that one. But listen, guys, there probably are some good, valid arguments to be making too, as well, for even if there was no contractual obligations for putting Onward on a streaming right now, considering the situation that it's in. How do you guys feel about it? If you were in charge, would you do that? Would you rate to see if you can make more money in the theaters first, whether with a relaunch or just trying to ride this out now? What would you do as an approach to this? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Edward Haustler, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. I'm one of the many people who are going to be stuck at home for the next week or so. Probably like my wife, Ann, Hasbro has told people that they need to work from home for the next few weeks. So Ann is actually home for the next 2 weeks. So I was thinking a great addition to your show would be you recommending some great stuff we should and can watch from home this week to pass the time. Thanks." You know what, Edward? That is a fabulous idea, my friend. That is a fabulous idea. So for the rest of this week and maybe even into next week, our final segment of the show, moving forward, is going to be stuff you should watch at home. Dun, 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 dun. Stuff you should watch at home. It's going to be the final segment we do on the show here for the next week or two, kind of suggesting to you some maybe not completely hidden gems, but maybe some underwatched, underappreciated gems, things that you, if you're stuck at home too, can be watching this week. And by the way, I'm going to want you guys to jump into the comment section too and give your suggestions of things people can watch at home, while we're writing this thing out and engaging in our responsible social distancing and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about a couple of movies here. Rob and I each day are going to come up with one thing we think we should be watching at home. And Rob, you know what? I'm going to give the honors to you to start off today about what movie you think people should be watching. So let's start with you. What is your Monday pick for things you should watch at home?
Okay, this is a criminally underrated movie that I love that stars Blake Lively at her most radiant. And it's a movie called Age of Adeline. And Age of Adeline, I guess you could call it time travel, but there's no time travel involved in the normal sense. It's basically about a beautiful woman that literally has a fantastical event happen to her, and it stops the aging process in her. And she obviously stops aging, and she has to cover her identity and who she is. And it's a romance. It's set in San Francisco. Harrison Ford is in it, and Anthony Gruber is in it, he was the kid that did that dead-on Harrison Ford impression that everybody thinks he should have played he should have played Han Solo in Solo. It's just a lovely, sumptuous, romantic film. It's a little film. It's not a big film, but this hit me right in the feels. I love this movie. I loved Blake Lively's I fall in love with female characters in movies, not because they're beautiful women or whatever, but it's the character itself, the overall character. And I always say that the supreme example of this is Grace Kelly in Rear Window. But her character, she plays Adeline in this movie. She's just lovely. She's just a lovely person. Even the way she talks. But my God, the dresses she wears in this film. And it's just this lovely, romantic, heartfelt story about growing older and what does it mean to have family and what is the passage of time like. And it's a film that kind of fell through the cracks. I don't know anything about the director. I don't know if he's done anything after that. I love this movie, John. I own it on Blu-ray. I bought it sight unseen. I don't even know why I bought it. I hadn't even seen it before. Maybe I read something somewhere. Nobody talks about this movie. And I love this film. I just adore it. And it's kind of like there's a science fiction movie with Jared Leto in it that I should say. It's kind of similar called Mr. Nobody. But these two movies together, it's my, but Age of Adeline it's just, I think everybody should watch this film, whether you're a science fiction fan or not, whether you're a fan of romances or not, or whether you're just fans of movies that are both charming and thought-provoking. Age of Adeline is the kind of movie that even the person with the most blackened soul will feel a little warmed up by this movie. It's delightful.
You know, I never did watch Gossip Girl. I was never a Gossip Girl thing. So it was movies like this that made me fall in love with Blake Lively. She is a wonderful talent. She's so good and absolutely one of the most stunningly, male or female, one of the most stunningly beautiful creatures to grace the face of the earth with her footprint. I mean, she's just absolutely wonderful. And she hasn't always gotten the best movies, but right. I've always adored her, and that was one of them. That's a nice pick. Age of Adeline. That's a nice pick, Rob.
Her performance in this film is just
so good.
You love her.
Yeah. You absolutely do. And that movie doesn't work, by the way. That movie doesn't work at all if the audience doesn't get absolutely emotionally attached to her and her performance.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
And the movie's outlandish, but it works.
Absolutely. All right. So you do Age of Adeline. I like that one a lot. So since today's the first day that we're doing this stuff you should watch at home, I'm going to do what some of you might even be predicting is the movie I'm going to pick. So I'm going to get my most obvious one out of the way first, and we'll get into some slightly more obscure ones as we move forward. But guys, the one I have to pick up here, and you guys know I consider this to be the single most underappreciated film ever. Not that I think it's the greatest film ever, but I think out of all the films that are just so good and so wonderful and deserve to be put up on this pedestal and this mantle, this movie doesn't get it, and it absolutely deserves it. And that movie to me is what I call the new age Princess Bride. It's Stardust. I got to go with Stardust. This movie, you guys have heard me wax poetic about this film in the past. This is a movie, and by the way, if you're thinking, hey, that guy in the middle looks like Daredevil. Oh, it is. This was a movie that had Charlie Cox and Henry Cavill, by the way. Had Charlie Cox and Henry Cavill. The basic idea of this, it's in a fantasy world and in a fantasy land where a shooting star crashes to Earth. And that shooting star is actually Claire Danes. And everybody's now after this shooting star and this common little Wesley, if you will. His name's not Wesley in the movie, but the Princess Bride analogy is Charlie Cox in it. And the two meet as well. It's got Michelle Pfeiffer, who is so freaking good in this movie. It's got Robert De Niro in one of my absolute all-time favorite Robert De Niro performances like ever. I love Robert De Niro in this. It's got Ricky Gervais is in it. And actually, let me run down the IMDb here. Ian McKellen. Let's see. David Kelly. Ben Barnes is one of the dudes in it. Kate McGowan. Charlie Cox. Sienna Miller is in it. Of course, Henry Cavill we mentioned before. Peter O'Toole. Mark Strong. Peter O'Toole in one of his final major films that he did. Stardust is just magical. It's magical, and it epitomizes the best of fantasy. And like I said, the best way I usually know how to describe it to people is to say it is the new Princess Bride. I'm not saying it's better than Princess Bride. Not. I'm just saying is what Princess Bride was to me when I was a lot younger. It's just that movie that had this joyous fantasy magic about it. To me, Stardust became the next evolution of that. It just became the next one to kind of, it became the heir to the throne of that. I just love this movie from top to bottom. If you've ever seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But despite the fact that I talk about this movie so much, Rob, I never cease to be amazed by how many people still tell me, yeah, I've never seen it or never even heard of it. Never even heard of it. And this movie is absolutely glorious. I love this film so much. So listen, guys, if you're at home this week, you got the week off school, week off work, whatever, you're home, kicking it back, do check out, treat yourself. Check out Stardust because it's just great. Did you ever have a chance? I never asked Rob if you had a chance to see Stardust before.
Oh, dude. I love Stardust. It's based on a Neil Gaiman,
yes,
I guess you call it graphic novel. And Neil Gaiman, of course, The Sandman is my all-time favorite comic. I'm a huge Neil Gaiman fan. His brand of fantasy is right up my alley. I adore this movie. First of all, Michelle Pfeiffer is another one of these actresses that I will watch anything that she's in. And she is luminous in this movie. And I love her to death. And like you said, what a cast this film has. And this movie is delightful from beginning to end.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Because I contend that Stardust is, I personally feel like the most underappreciated film of all time. It's funny because I feel like the most underrated and underappreciated comic book film of all time is Man of Steel.
Oh, yeah.
And Henry Cavill's in both. Henry Cavill.
Well,
is like the king. Go ahead.
Matthew Vaughn directed this movie.
Yes, he did. That's right.
And it's funny, you think about what Matthew Vaughn has done, of course, X-Men First Class.
Kick-Ass.
It's not like and Kick-Ass, and of course the
Kingsman.
Where is the Gentleman? What happened to that? I know they pulled it from Elise or whatever, but or didn't they? Did it come out? It didn't, right?
Oh, I can't remember.
The King's Man. Pardon me, not the Gentleman came out. The King's Man.
Yeah.
But he did Kingsman and of course the third movie, and this movie's kind of forgotten in his filmography, and it's because it's not like you wouldn't have thought he would have done it, but man, this movie is just what a delight.
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, guys, our 2 stuff you should watch at home recommendations for today is Stardust and Age of Adeline. Make sure you guys check those out. And of course, we'll do this again tomorrow. We'll give 2 more things at our picks. But by the way, guys, since you guys are the film fan community, jump down to the comment section and give some of your recommendations about maybe some underappreciated, some a little bit lesser known, some things that not everybody got out to see that you would recommend as some little bit of a hidden gem. Go on down and recommend that, and we'll give some more recommendations. By the way, Rob, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I already got my movie for tomorrow picked out. And it's one that nobody has watched. And it's got some big names in it. And it's one of my probably one of my top 20 favorite comedies. Actually, probably my top 20 favorite comedies. And we'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow. Anyway, guys, listen, that will do it for all of our main topics here today. We are now going to move on and take your live questions. You guys have been firing in a lot of live questions, and we're going to get over to those and start taking those in just a minute. But before we do, as Rob and I do every day, we're going to take a short 4-minute break here, give ourselves a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch our legs, me to go refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom, talk amongst yourselves for a bit. So if you guys will hang tight, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes. back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience and indulgence as Rob and I took just a little bit of a break there. So now let's not waste any more time and get into your live questions. And we're going to start things off with Jeremy Shishabu, who writes, unless you release the breakdance video. Yes. Unless you release the breakdance video in 24 hours, the world dies, including your loved ones. Would you release it to save the world? Well, yes. There's not, I mean, anything other than the surrender of my immortal soul, I suppose. Yes. That, I suppose. But I'm telling you what, Jeremy, not much less than that would get me and motivate me to actually release the breakdance video. It's not much less than that would do it. Okay. Let's move on here. Where are we at? Oh, yeah. Angela Dashner writes, thanks, John, for still being on air. It is our pleasure, Angela. I feel like any day now I may be at home because of my place of employment closes. I appreciate that you are on the air and gives me a distraction from everything that is going on. Thanks. Well, no, honestly, Angela, no, thank you for being here. And, I've always said, Rob, this is kind of the fulfillment of that. We've always said that, one of the things that makes the movie fan, first of all, movies and the movie fan community great is that it does give us that thing. We got crap going on in our lives, even if it's on a bigger scale like this, it gives us that time that we can still get together, watch something great, be taken away, change our perspective, refreshen our minds and our imaginations, everything. And then we come back and our real world problems are still there, whether they're personal or on a larger scale, they're still there. But we're just in a better place to deal with it at that point. We come with it with a different perspective now. And that's why I love this type of stuff. And even in situations like this. So, yeah, I've never at all considered not still doing the show. I don't think you have either, Rob, right? Like this is just something that we absolutely will continue to do, correct? Yes?
Oh, I think so. I mean, look, what's interesting, despite what's going on, like you pointed out, or like I pointed out at the top of the hour, I'm still working. You're in the middle of production on your documentary. I mean, this show, one of the things that I've tried to tell people about what these particular shows mean to me is they've really helped me reconnect with my interest and love of all of this. As I should be going into my middle-aged, bitter years, talking about all my dreams that weren't fulfilled and how my life is amounting to nothing. I mean, what being on YouTube has done for me is it's completely kept me re-energized and reconnected and excited and meeting fans and talking to people. And it's really, I find that this has, I have the enthusiasm as my 22-year-old self had when I went and worked on my very first movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm as excited about the future of the entertainment business and my own future working in it as I've ever been. And part of that is because of doing these shows.
All right. Well said, man. Well said. All right. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, just got back from cycling Africa. Dude, that's way beyond me. That's way beyond
rad,
me. That's
dude.
Awesome.
I want to see those videos.
Yeah, imagine coming home to an empty city. It scared the shit out of me. I don't know about the US, but Europe looks like 28 days later. I had no idea what was happening. Thanks for being a sign of normality. You and Rob's people okay? Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. And you know what? That's the thing you were talking a little about earlier. Remember, we showed those simulations. You know what? The fact that our brothers and sisters in Europe are making the streets look like 28 days later, that's a good thing. That is people saying, we're taking action and we're going to beat this thing. And this is how we do it. And to me, that's a good sign. That's actually a good sign. And bravo to the folks in Europe who are taking it that seriously and are doing stuff like that. And dude, you just showed you're 3 times more the man than I'll ever be cycling Africa. That's crazy. All right. Accidental Picasso writes, Disney World's Animal Kingdom has a free animation class at Conversation Station. Next time you're there, if you do the 25-minute class and show us your drawing on your show, I'll donate $100 to a charity of your choosing. Now, isn't Disney World, that's in Florida?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I live near Disneyland, which is here in California. Ann and I, this is just, some of you know this, Ann and I were supposed to go to Florida next week. Because for Ann's birthday, she wanted us to go to Florida and go to WrestleMania. And we were going to go to WrestleMania, and then we were going to go to Universal Studios, and we were going to go to Disney World and all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, we canceled our trip, obviously. We canceled our trip, and that's too bad. But someday soon, accidentally Picasso, someday soon, I will have to get myself, down there, and then maybe then I'll take you up on that offer. Maybe then, because very little I won't do if it's for charity. Like you guys have, if you guys have followed me for any period of time, whether it's 24-hour stuff, literally pouring a bucket of ice down the front of my pants and continuing to do the show for what, I mean, there's very little that I would not do for charity. And so I will, even if it means showing my awful hand drawing, I will do it. So maybe once I get a chance to get down there, I'll take you up on that. The Dude Abides. What a great name, writes. Comedies that took me multiple viewings to appreciate and find truly funny. Number 1, The Big Lebowski, which of course Dude Abides is a Lebowski reference. Number 2, Anchorman. I love that movie from the first time I saw it. Number 3, Napoleon Dynamite. Any comedies that you didn't find funny the first time, but came to love as you watched it more and more? Actually, Rob, I do have one, but it's one that I still liked. It's one that I still liked, even the first time I saw it. Like, I liked it the first time I saw it, but I didn't see it as this all-time comedy classic the first time I saw it until I saw it like the second or third time. And that is Dumb and Dumber. Which was just on TV the other night. Ann and I and her brother were watching Dumb and Dumber, and our friend Ryan were watching Dumb and Dumber again. And like, it doesn't matter how many times you see that movie, you forget how funny it is every single time. And I've even got on Twitter the Jeff Daniels bathroom laxative scene, while completely juvenile, is to me a top 20 funniest moments in movie history that I just laugh myself sick at every time. Anyway, do you have a particular comedy that you didn't appreciate it the way you appreciate it now when you saw it for the first time?
Well, my friend Mary Forrest, Tommy Boy.
Ah,
I was like, what? She's like, no, this movie's great. And I'm like, wait, what? How is this movie great? And indeed, it's a lot funnier than I saw it once cursorily. I don't know, like I half watched it once on cable, and I was like, I sat down, and it's pretty damn funny. And that was a movie yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good pick. All right, Three Yellow Barrels writes, I like your take on remakes. Jaws is untouchable for me, but if they ever remake it, the shark has to be animatronic. CGI ages poorly, but Bruce from the original still looks great. Side note, Robert Shaw's USS Indianapolis speech still leaves me in awe. No, that scene is one of the most gripping, incredible, most perfectly directed scenes ever. 3 dudes sitting in a small room on a boat and just one dude telling a story. And it is one of the most perfectly directed scenes in the history of film. I mean, listen, old CGI ages, yes, but we're getting into the era now that there's CGI that's done that you don't even know you're looking at CGI. Right. There's a lot of films today that have a lot of CGI in it that you don't even know it's CGI. And that stuff's going to age better. So I think it's whatever will serve the movie better because, hey, let's be honest, sometimes even in Jaws, today Bruce looks a little mechanical. I mean, there just are. So I don't know. But Rob, if you were in charge of doing a new Jaws reboot, would you go with a mechanical shark? Would you go with CGI? I'd probably do a mixture of the two personally, but how would you handle it?
I was going to say that. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to look, there's nothing better than watching Robert Shaw slide into the mouth of Bruce the Shark. Now, that would be extremely difficult to be able to shoot that with a CG shark. The physicality of it, I think, look, in Jurassic Park, even though it was done in 93, there's a great combination of CG and practical effects. Like when they find the sick Triceratops, that's a Stan Winston physical model of a Triceratops. It's right there, so they can pet it and that you see it breathing and all that. You can't, that's real. And while as good as CG is getting, there's nothing that beats that physical interaction between an actor and a real something that's actually there. So I think you're right, doing a combination of the two. But again, if you want to make something convincing like Jaws, it's the way the shots are designed, and having CG shots that look totally convincing, that's a real art form.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, 50 Shades writes, fair warning, John. Niantic has taken steps to encourage Pokemon Go players to play closer to home and might love it, but you're going to hate it. Yeah, like in our household, Anne is a Pokemon Go player, which I will never understand, but I know a lot of people love it, and that's great, and my wife loves it, and that's great, but it's just something I'll just never get. All right, 50 Shades also writes, will the virus situation affect your documentary in any way? Actually, up until now, no. It really hasn't affected. Now, this is one of the advantages, though, of me producing a documentary, is that I don't need a set and crew of 30 people to shoot a scene. You know what I mean? And we're starting to head into the home stretch as far as principal photography goes on the documentary. And not that we're almost done, but we've rounded the corner. We are now more than halfway through the shooting part of the documentary. Then comes the long, arduous part of editing and post-production and stuff like that. But yeah, Rob, it's funny because you and I, Rob, just earlier, before we started the show, we're doing an interview with somebody on Tuesday, and we had our very first discussion as it pertained to the virus, because I just told Rob has arranged he set up one of the interviews that we're doing on Tuesday. And I just double checked with Rob. I said, hey, is our subject at all nervous about wanting to back out? And Rob said, no. I said, okay, but tell our subject that we're going to keep our crew to just 3 people. We're just in case they're nervous, we're going to keep our crew to just 3 people, and we're going to shoot it in a room with 3 or 4 people, and that's it. But that's really the first time this has come up with this, Rob. Can you see any way in a documentary like ours that doesn't involve crowds or anything, that a way that it could affect a documentary shoot?
Well, no, because even where, the venue that we're shooting in and stuff, it's not like there's a lot of people. But if you are making a documentary where, say, you had to go interview somebody who worked in an office building or someplace where, we're lucky in the sense that these interviews are one-on-one interviews, and you don't have to deal with anybody going to anywhere where there's any kind of a crowd, and that everybody that you work with, they're not going to be sick or so. I think the great thing about documentaries is if you're not shooting, you're editing. So and it's not like you're on the clock necessarily, because it's your documentary. Like for me, I've really quite enjoyed having these documentaries that I have to do. I shot all the footage 12 years ago, and what's great is I hadn't even gone through all the footage before. So it's been a delight for me to go revisit, to go through 24 hours of footage I shot on a movie set in Bulgaria. And it hasn't affected me at all. If anything, I've been the most socially distanced I could possibly be. And I think with documentary filmmaking, if you're not out in the field collecting footage, you can always be editing. So that is a good thing. And by the way, John, as all the other fall shows or all the other shows that are in production are all on hiatus, you're going to have a finished documentary to sell, to put on a streaming service.
Woohoo!
And how great is that?
I'll be going to Netflix and all them saying, doesn't matter if my movie's crap. You got to take it because you don't have anything else.
It's pretty A-list what you're doing. I mean, I've seen some of the footage. It's really beautifully done. And I think it's really going to, if I do say so myself, I think people are going to love it.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on here. Next question comes to us from Tron Mickelson, who writes, Back to the Future reboot. Marty McFly is in the future, California 2055, standing outside the cinema. The camera pans left to reveal a movie poster saying, coming soon. Coming soon. New Mutants. Yeah, it's poor New Mutants. Rob and I have been talking about it on the show. It's just like at some point, like superstitious or not, at some point you just have to believe that this movie is cursed. Like it just got bumped off its release date for the 4th time. For the 4th time, it just got bumped off its release date. If it's not one thing, it's another. But nice scenario there, Tron. Okay, 50 Shades writes, with all the movies getting delayed, is it possible that some of the smaller, lower budget movies can do some rewrites and reshoots that they wouldn't normally be able to do for scheduling reasons? I suppose you can, but realistically, if you're planning on shooting your movie, that means you're at a point that you've got the movie you want. And if you're not, then you shouldn't be in filmmaking. Like if you're moving forward and making your movie and it's not to the place that you want it to be, then there's something fundamentally wrong with that. So I guess theoretically 50, they could, but also if they're already planning and moving ahead, they should already have their film where they want it to be. Other than that, then they should have been taking more time anyway. 50 also writes, with all the movies, just accidentally put it in twice. No problem. Sam O'Neill writes, forgive my stupidity, but I only just found out Fun Diesel probably meant Vin Diesel. Let's call him Fun Diesel from now on.
I like that. Fun Diesel.
Fun Diesel. The new Fast and Furious movie starring Fun Diesel. But I just found out that Fun Diesel was the amazing Iron Giant. Yes, he was. That movie was one of my favorite movies as a kid, along with Jennifer Aniston, Christopher McDonald. Wow, mind blown. How did I not know this? Well, I mean, you're forgiven for not knowing that, Sam, because, I mean, how would you know? I mean, it's not like Diesel does like a full vocal performance in it. Like it's a very... There's no reason you should know it, but yes, as a part of Fun Trivia, Fun Diesel does indeed do the voice of the Iron Giant. And, you know, that was Brad Bird, was it not?
Yeah.
Brad Bird directed that, who, of course, then went on and directed The Incredibles as well. And, you know, talk about animated films that people have kind of been itching to see a live action adaptation of. The movie The Iron Giant gets brought up a lot. Rob, could you see that one being translated into a live action film?
Oh, dude, that movie's so good, and I would certainly love to see that. Who wouldn't? I mean, I you know, and just seeing with modern visual effects, the Iron Giant brought to life, how cool would that be?
It could, and that is an animated film that I think would do very well could translate well as an live action, and maybe Brad Bird directs it too. All right, Willow writes. Off topic, but you mentioned advertisers on YouTube not wanting their brand being associated with the virus. I cannot help but wonder how the folks at Corona Beer are feeling. The word may carry a negative connotation for a while. True, and it's funny because Anne's mom and brother and Ray live in a town called Corona, which is where we were this weekend. But at the same time, I feel like Corona may be benefiting Rob a little bit because I'm seeing a lot of memes online saying, like, I don't know about you, but on my social media streams, I'm seeing a lot of memes of saying, this is the only Corona I'm worried about. And it's just people, even Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks's wife, has been tweeting about, listen, the only Corona I want to deal with right now is this one. So yeah, you're right. It's going to long-term maybe carry some negative connotations, but I also feel that kind of they might be benefiting a little bit from it, from people making light. I don't know. What do you think, Rob? Is this something that could hurt them long-term?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, to me, a Corona beer and a lime sort of symbolizes being at the beach. It symbolizes summer. It symbolizes California to me. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of people like, oh, it's not the greatest beer in the world. I think what's interesting about Corona is it's exactly the beer it's supposed to be. And I think it'll come back. Because there are just times when a Corona and a lime is exactly what you need. Yeah,
I don't drink beer, which is like almost made the customs people at the border revoke my Canadian card. But I actually don't drink beer. But I know.
What?
Okay. Crazy. Froigon Jin writes, over under 50%, that in the next 5 years, the Oscars give us a best ensemble category. Among my favorites are A Few Good Men, Quiz Show, The Untouchables, Hidden Figures, LA Confidential, and The Contender. All great. I do believe, Froigon, as the Academy has been talking about and looking at expanding some categories, I believe we've talked about it on the show before. I do believe best ensemble is one that makes sense because it is very distinct from best lead actor, best lead actress. Because, for instance, this year, I thought, even though SAG didn't give it to them, like, I thought Knives Out was easily the best ensemble cast of the year. Like, that was just a movie where every single performer in it worked in such perfect synchronicity and playing off each other in such a perfect way. I thought so. I do believe over 50%, Rob, that we're going to get a best ensemble category in the next 5 years. What do you think?
Ooh, I don't know, but I don't know about that. We might. I mean, I could definitely see that happening, but I don't know because there's too much. There's a lot of variables in that category, and I don't know what the rules would be, but maybe. I mean, obviously for SAG, that's their biggest award.
Yes.
So maybe. I mean, you might be right about that.
I'm gonna, for 5 years is a long time, so I'm going to take the over 50% on that. All right. Cleric John Preston writes, hey, John and Rob, I have always wondered, how do actors get paid? Also, is their salary part of the movie/show budget? Thanks and keep up the good work. Yes, the producers of the film, they enter negotiations with an actor or their representation. They decide upon a fee. They'll each each time it may be a little bit different. Sometimes it'll just be a flat rate. Sometimes it'll be associated to points of the film if you're a bigger named actor. Sometimes there'll be residuals attached to it and all that kind of stuff. And yes, absolutely, their salary is a part of the budget of the film. Rob, without going into tons of detail, do we add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think that's people have to understand that, yes, the actors on a film are a line item like anybody else, and they're paid, they get weekly paychecks, just like everybody else does. Although, depending on how it all works, the actors usually have to give their agents and managers a percentage of what they're making.
Yep.
So that could be up as much as 25% of what they make to their people.
Yep.
And that can be a heavy hit.
It can. All right, next up here, we've got an anonymous viewer writes, the only person who can stop the coronavirus is Mr. Rogers. I have it on good authority, actually. This is funny. I was doing some reading. I found out I actually have it on good authority that Fred Rogers, of course, Mr. Rogers, was actually a seventh Infinity Stone. That he himself was the lost seventh Infinity Stone. Not many people know that, but I've got that on good authority, Rob. I got it on WeGotThisCovered.com, so I'm pretty sure it's probably true.
Fascinating.
Right. The Sock writes, I've been binge watching the Imagineering story, and it's fascinating to learn reasoning on things as simple as the color of the ground. And when they got to talking about soaring, it brought me to tears. That ride made some of the best memories with my dad. I'll tell you what, Rob, it's funny because Ann and I were going through the Disney Plus app the other night, which I admit don't watch much since Mandalorian ended anyway, and realizing, we've got to start watching Imagineering because everybody's telling us how good this Imagineering thing. So probably this week while we're both at home, we'll probably get into that Imagineering show. Have you gotten into it at all? Because that seems like a show that's right up your alley.
Dude, I loved it. The Imagineering story is so interesting. It's so fascinating, and it's really uplifting because a lot of people, you can get cynical about Disney, but when you look at and experience all of the effort and thought that is put into, and I know a few Imagineers. I was lucky to work at Landmark Entertainment on the Star Trek experience, and I recently went out to lunch with Luke Mayron, who's been into theme park design for 3 decades. And these guys and girls, the men and women of the Imagineering divisions, they're geniuses, and the thought that they put into this stuff. And I found the whole show really uplifting, and it just makes you want to go right back to Disneyland and look at all the street lamps, and all the bricks and all the little details and things, and realize every single tree placement was thought about. And that's one of the reasons I love Disneyland.
Yeah, I agree. And I love going there. Can't go there right now, obviously, but we love going there. All right, Suthius writes, hey guys, I think a good example of an actor/actress who isn't a household name, but has been in countless shows and movies is Clifton Collins Jr. I've had breakfast with Clifton Collins Jr., as a matter of fact. I love this guy. Anyway, Westworld, Pacific Rim, Star Trek, etc. I always enjoy him when he's on screen. The dude is 49. Really? By the way, he has a great character in Ballers as well, but looks 30. He does look like he's 30, so I can't believe he's 49. Yeah, he is also
awesome.
In my friend Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor's films, Jason Statham films, Crank, the Crank movies. And so one year at Comic-Con, they were getting ready for Crank 2, and I was having breakfast with Mark. And of course, the director of the film, he said, hey, do you mind if my buddy Clifton comes along? And I'm like, no, that's fine. And I didn't realize he was talking about Clifton Collins Jr. And Clifton Collins Jr. came around and it's getting down, 3 of us having breakfast. He's a very cool dude, by the way. Very, very cool dude. And you're right. He is one of these guys who just pops up in everything. And a lot of people don't even know his name. Clifton Collins Jr. That's a great pick, Suthius. I like that a lot. All right. Murray Reich writes, could you imagine if the Oscars was this time of year? What would they have done if they had canceled it? Would they have posted online who won all the awards, or would they have postponed the event till after the dust settles? No, I don't think they would have postponed the event. This is just a guess, Rob. It's just a guess. But I'm guessing that what they would have done was have a live streamed event. I feel like they would have had a live streamed event. That they still would have had individual people come on camera, like obviously without an audience, and saying, honor the people they're going to honor, have the montages they were going to show, have a musical number or two, and then just announce the nominees were blah, blah, blah. And it would be a huge online event, but I think they would have moved forward with it and just made it a streaming event, much like the last UFC event this Saturday, which was weird. I was watching a UFC event with nobody in the audience. It was crazy. It was in this giant stadium, nobody in the audience, and they just went out with the fights. But that's what I think they would do. I think they would stream it. Rob, do you think they would stream it, not stream it and just announce the winners, or postpone it and do it later? They would stream it?
I think they would stream it. I think they would do something. It's really strange watching these live shows. Like, I watch a lot of talk shows and stuff, and to see the talk shows being done without an audience, you can tell that at first, like Stephen Colbert, I watched that first show, and it was weird, and it was weird. The weirdest person for him, it was the weirdest, because his whole show is gauged on his audience response, and when you don't have that, it was fascinating to watch, I have to say.
You know what? I just watched the newest John Oliver. And he did it without an audience. And at first, like, you really feel the lack of the audience. But for whatever reason, about 5 minutes into it, I was just rolling with it. And it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So and his latest one is on the coronavirus. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, you should go look it up. It's the newest one he just did. It's online. It's actually quite good. All right. Next up, Murray Reich writes, I feel like the only person who can save us from the virus is Kite Man. And of course, for those of you who watch the Harley Quinn animated show, which by the way, if you don't, you should. Kite Man has become like this weird little side character in the show. But by the end of the season, I'm like, oh my God, I love Kite Man. If you haven't seen the show, you should. And you're right. Kite Man. Hell yeah. Kite Man could be the one to save us all. Nice one, Murray. All right. David Crabtree writes, hey, John, I want to highly recommend 2016's Batman Return to the Caped Crusaders, as well as its follow-up Batman versus Two-Face. The writing for those is sharp, hilarious, and the animation style is stellar, very much like PG siblings of the Harley Quinn show. I don't know, David. That's a tall order for me, because I basically, with some exceptions, I don't like DC or Marvel's animated stuff. Again, there are a couple of key exceptions that I do like, but for the most part, I don't. So I don't know. I've had a lot of people tell me, John, you should watch this Justice League animated thing, and I do, and I don't like it. John, you should watch this Marvel animated thing, and I do, and I don't like it. So I don't know. It's a tall order. Rob, have you seen any of these ones that our friend David is mentioning?
I watch a few. My problem, I think, is that I'm always let down by the animation itself. Some of the storylines I really like. Like, I've watched a few of the DC animated things that I really like. I liked Flashpoint Paradox. I like the Wonder Woman one. I like the Teen Titans Judas Contract movie. But for the most part, the animation is not much different than their television animation.
Right.
So, I do dip into it. I still want to get, there's like a box set of 30 animated DC movies on Blu-ray. I really kind of want that, and I haven't seen Red Son yet, and there's a lot that I want, but the Marvel stuff I'm not as big a fan of. So
I gotta say, I am curious about Red Son, because that's a story I've liked for a long time.
I know.
So I am curious
really
to watch
that. See it. I gotta watch it. I gotta get it.
All right, let's move on here. Tyler Yeats writes, do you have a favorite Ben Affleck movie? I just ordered The Town and Argo. So freaking brilliant. Starting to get cabin fever with no sports and our gym is closed. Hope all is well. Yeah, it is. But I was thinking the other day, Rob, what the hell is ESPN going to do? I love ESPN, but there's literally nothing to talk about for ESPN. Like, I don't know. But anyway, favorite Ben Affleck movie. It depends on whether we're talking about a movie he's directed or a movie he starred in. Directed, it's hard not to say Argo. I mean, Argo is so, right. But I mean, every movie, even We Live at Night is like, is that the name of it? We Live at Night? Or we Live the Night, or something along those lines. I thought that movie, while not his best, clearly, I still thought that was a damn good movie. And you look at the other films he's directed, it's amazing. When it comes to movies he's just starred in, I mean, he was a supporting character in Good Will Hunting. That's great. But listen, I often come back to this little movie he did with Samuel L. Jackson a bunch of years ago called Changing Lanes, which I think is a deeply entertaining, yes, but profound movie and social commentary and observation. And I think it's as an applicable of a movie today as it was when it came out. I think it's a powerful, powerful film. So it all depends. Rob, when you think of Ben Affleck, what are the movies that you jump to in your head?
Well, I always go to Gone Girl. I mean,
so
the
good.
fact that Fincher picked it. Look, I have been a huge Ben Affleck fan. I mean, all the way back to what he was doing with Kevin Smith. I really liked Chasing Amy. I liked him in that film, and I think he's, like you said, Changing Lanes. We've talked about that before. I really like that movie a lot, and I'm a fan, man. I'm an Affleck fan.
All right, let's move on here. Next one up is David Crabtree, who writes in, okay, top 15 favorite action films of the 90s. Getting very specific. Number 15, Broken Arrow. I don't know what's more concerning, that the nuclear missile's gone missing or that happens so often that you actually have a name for it. Number 14, Independence Day. Number 13, Speed. Number 2, Lethal Weapon 3. I love Lethal Weapon 3. Number 11, Bad Boys. Number 10, Demolition Man. And hey, listen, Demolition Man, wait a second. Demolition Man is the one where Stallone.
Don't say three seashells.
We now know where the 3 seashells thing comes from. The mystery of the 3 seashells has been answered. Now we know why they got to needing the 3 seashells. Anyway, sorry. Number 9, Die Hard 2. Number 8, Terminator 2. Number 7, The Fugitive. Oh God. I didn't kill my wife. I don't care. Number 6, Face Off. Number 5, Con Air. Number 4, Air Force One. Number 3, True Lies. Number 2, The Rock. And number 1, Armageddon. Fellow person who appreciates Armageddon. That's good. That's a wicked list. That is a straight up wicked list. My favorite on the list is True Lies. That's actually my number 1 all-time favorite action film. But I love The Rock, and I love Face Off, and I love Fugitive, and so many good. Rob, is there 1 or 2 on that list that stand out to you specifically?
Well, you're talking about. I hadn't seen True Lies in ages, and it's streaming. I don't know what I was late night. It just popped up, and I put it on, and I figured I'm just gonna dip in and watch the opening scene. Cameron, man, Cameron is just
James Cameron.
James Cameron, such a powerhouse director. His shot choices, he just knows where to. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's as deft as maybe Steven Spielberg is, but in terms of setting up action and shooting coverage, damn, he knows what he's doing. And True Lies, what a great, great, great film that is. But all those, look, I love Armageddon. I do love The Rock because it's your best. It's got the greatest Sean Connery.
Losers whine about their best. Great line.
It's so good, that whole. But the 90s were such a. What about The Last Boy Scout? I didn't hear that. Did he have that on that?
I don't think he's got that one on there. I like The Last Boy Scout. I mean, the ending.
I do too.
The ending of that movie when he's doing the jig. I'll do a jig. I was like, that was a good one too. Yeah, a lot of great ones. Okay, let's move on here. Next one up comes to us from Ryan Lohner, who writes, one more Disney Plus recommendation, Diary of a Future President. It's a highly relatable and believable portrayal of going through middle school, plus plenty of great jokes for both kids and adults. That's interesting. Ryan, that was one of the projects that Disney Plus highlighted at D23 last year. And they brought out the cast and they talked about it, and it didn't really catch my attention, but you're not the first person to tell me that it's actually pretty good. So yeah. I may have to add that one to my list as well, because I'm hearing good things about it. Rob, have you seen it at all?
No, but it's definitely something that's on my list. I mean, dude, I got to tell you, totally apropos of nothing, I'm catching up with Hunters finally.
I got to get on that.
What a hoot that show is.
Really? Because I heard some people telling me that the first episode or 2 were really good and then it kind of tapers off. But then I'm hearing some other people saying they just really love the show overall. Where are you at in it right now?
Dude, anybody that's straight up killing Nazis, there's a Nazi conspiracy. I mean, Nazis are they're the best villains ever because they dress well, and I love seeing them killed, slaughtered, and they're just Lena Olin's the queen Nazi. I mean, this is like the greatest thing ever. I don't want to see her die, though. I love Lena Olin. If you've never seen a movie called Romeo is Bleeding, Lena Olin is one of the great femme fatales of all time.
All right, I think I'm gonna have to finally get on board with this one. Okay, Enrique305 writes, John, you won't see me at any AMC theaters, but you can catch me at my local drive-in theater. I mean, listen, if there were only still tons of drive-in theaters around, that kind of solves the problem, because you still have your social isolation, your social distancing.
Right.
You're in your own car, keep the windows rolled up, sit back, relax, watch a movie. That is a great answer to today's issue for sure. It's just unfortunate there's not a lot of them around left. Sam Fisher writes, Stardust is fantastic. It's like if Princess Bride was millennial. Charlie Cox and Claire Danes are great. So is Henry Cavill, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Mark Strong. But the highlight is Robert De Niro as a cross-dressing pirate. I'm telling you guys, for those of you who haven't seen the movie and you're hearing, wait, Robert De Niro is what? Just see the movie. Just see the movie. Take Sam's advice here. See the movie. It's absolutely fabulous. Murray Reich writes, I highly recommend to anyone who is a fan of the OG 1960 series, The Twilight Zone, should check out one of my favorite episodes titled The Shelter. It's a powerful one. It sort of resonates with our times today. It does. I'm not familiar. Which one is that, Rob? What happens in The Shelter?
The Shelter is literally about it's about a bomb shelter and in a neighborhood and whether or not someo's going to be let in or not. And it's very resonant to today.
Oh, now the way you described, now I believe I remember it. Now I think I remember it. That was a good one, if I'm remembering it correctly. All right. Nosferatu writes, sorry if you found that pie joke I said on the last show was super chat irrational. Oh, that's another math terminology joke, but it's going a little bit over my head because I can't remember the specific definition of it. But I thought the pie joke was funny. Christopher Jenks writes, I'm not much into Westerns as I am other genres, but that Open Range with Kevin Costner is a good one. Now he asks you twice, ain't gonna ask again. That's the one he did with Robert Duvall, isn't it? Is that the one he did with Robert Duvall? Open Range?
Yes. And by the way, that movie's great.
Yeah, I remember. If it's the one that I'm remembering, it is really good. Actually, now I just got to jump over and look it up now because it's going to. I know. I believe it's the Robert Duvall one.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, it is. Yes, very, very good movie. Came out like 15. Well, actually, what year?
2003.
17 years ago. 17 years. But yes, that was actually quite a good movie. I like that one a lot. Okay,
it's one of the best westerns of the last 20 years for sure.
Yeah. Not a ton of them in the last 20 years, but one of the best. All right, let's see here. An anonymous viewer writes, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, XFL, fans, you took everything from me, coronavirus. I don't even know who you are. Fans, you will. Well, listen, at least the UFC still has its events. It's just in an empty arena. They're just being done in an empty arena. So at least there's still that. But yeah, man, poor ESPN. Like, what the hell are they going to have to talk about? All right. Johnny Weiner writes, Weiner. I keep saying Wiener, but it's pronounced Weiner writes, Illinois has ordered all restaurants and bar owners to close for 2 weeks. Delivery, carryout, and curbside service will still be allowed, but customers won't be allowed in dining rooms or bars. I know you said it's serious, but it's getting frustrating. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, it's frustrating. But guess what? When something potentially really climactic happens, it may inconvenience us a little bit. And that's fine. Like, they've done the same thing here in Los Angeles. Restaurants have now been ordered shut. You can still get takeout and delivery and all that kind of nonsense. But listen, like we went over that stuff a little bit earlier about, look what happens when all of us take responsibility and say, you know what, for a few weeks, we're just going to bunker down. We're going to minimize our interaction with people. We're only going to do what we absolutely need to do, and everything else will shut down. And it's going to be an inconvenience. It is. It's going to be but sometimes we need to do what's inconvenient. And I'm sure you understand that, Johnny. I'm sure you understand that completely. But you're right. It is very disrupting to our normal way of life. There's no doubt about it. It's a massive disruption to our normal way of life. No getting around that. All right.
John, did you see what Paul Schrader, the writer-director, said? He was 5 days away from finishing his new movie with Oscar Isaac and Willem Dafoe.
No.
He went on Facebook and said, production halted 5 days before wrap by my pussified producers because an LA day player had the coronavirus. Myself, I would have shot through hellfire rain to complete the film. I'm old and asthmatic. What better way to die than on the job?
which is great, but
that's good for him, not for the rest of humanity.
See that, and therein lies the problem, right? Like, and I was having a discussion with a friend of mine a couple days ago who was like, you know what? I'm not really worried about getting sick because I'm pretty healthy. I'm fairly young and I'll be fine. And I said, the problem isn't you. The problem is who else you give it to.
Right.
And like, then this is the illustration. This is the analogy I use, Rob. It's like people who drink and drive. By the way, I don't like to paint with broad brushes, but if you drink and drive, you're a fucking asshole. Anyway, it's like people who drink and drive. Like when you ask them, I don't know if you should be driving. They're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm willing to, and you talk to them afterwards, like, I'm willing to take the risk because I know I'll be fine. I'm not worried about you, dipshit. Like, if you're somebody who thinks it's cool to drink and drive, the human race might be a little bit better off if we culled you from the herd. I'm not worried about you. But if you get into a car accident, it ain't going to be by yourself. You're going to hit somebody else who doesn't get a choice in this, who doesn't get a say in it. It's not about whether you getting hurt. So that's fine. You want to risk yourself. That's fine. But the moment that you risking yourself is putting other people at risk, that's when we got to start thinking a little bit bigger picture. We just got to start thinking a little bit bigger picture. Like, I get it. If all the issue was you and you might get sick, that's okay. I get it. That's one thing. But the thing is, you put it very, very well earlier, Rob, because when you get it, you now become a transmitter. You're not just sick yourself. It doesn't just hit you in there. That's the end of it. You become a transmitter. And you can get somebody else sick who may not deal so well with it. And that's just the attitude. That's just the bad attitude that people have. But I get it. I still admire the dude as a filmmaker willing to just do whatever it takes to fight. Like, can you imagine working? Because Rob, as a director, it's not like actors where you show up for 2 months and then you're done. As a director, you're working on this film for years.
Yeah.
And then you get to within 5 days of wrapping it. And then being forced to, I admit, I can understand the frustration. I could totally understand the frustration. That would be completely frustrating. I can't even imagine. All right. Let's see here. Last one we'll do here with Rob still here, because then he's got projects he's working on. Actually, we'll do two because we've got two $50 ones back to back. So thank you so much, guys, both Jay Master and Metal Vegan, for sending these in. If there's questions, not only will we answer them right now, we're also going to answer them in their own standalone video. We're nearly all caught up on those $50 questions. So keep your eyes open for in the next week to 10 days getting your $50 questions in their own standalone videos as well. We start off with Jay Master, who writes, "Hey, John, tomorrow, Governor Jay Inslee of the state of Washington will sign a document to close down all movie theaters, restaurants, and more businesses all around the Seattle area and the cities surrounding over Washington starting on Tuesday." Again, not really a question there, but yeah, and common sense. Here's the problem, though. That in Seattle, and Rob, I know this is going to be very close to home for you because that's your hometown. It might be a little bit too little too late. I mean, because they waited because Seattle is in rough shape right now. And that's why when people say to me, well, it's really not all that bad in California. And I'm like, well, wait, do you think you should start taking these precautions once it gets as bad as it is in Italy? Or once it gets as bad everywhere as it is in Seattle? It's too late. This is the time. But hey, at least they're taking the right steps. But Rob, I know Seattle's home for you. So what are your thoughts on them taking these measures?
Well, look, it's going to help. I mean, it might be too late, but at least it could prevent something from happening further. I think all measures are good measures. If you look at what happened in Italy and the way the infection has risen, we're at the bottom of that climb, and what happens in the next week is going to be very, very telling in this country, and especially in places like Seattle, where the outbreak got the worst. It was eventually Washington State was surpassed by New York, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in, Jay, and thanks for putting that on all of our radars and making that an issue. And again, and thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. We really appreciate it around here. All right. Metal Vegan writes, These are my top 10 of what I think are the greatest movies ever made. Number 10, Lion King. That is my all-time favorite animated film, actually. Number 9, The Game, Sean Penn, Michael Douglas. That's a great one. Number 8, Big Lebowski. Number 7, Good Will Hunting, which we just talked about. Number 6, The Matrix. Number 5, The Exorcist. Number 4, Saw. Really? I've never seen somebody put Saw that higher on their list. Number 3, There Will Be Blood. Number 2, Cinderella Man. Number 1, Requiem for a Dream. Well, that's kind of, first of all, I think I talked a little bit earlier about how I think Stardust might be the most underappreciated movie like ever. If I made a top 10 list of what I think might be the most underappreciated movies of all time, there's a very good chance Cinderella Man could be on that list. And Rob, I kind of feel like the reason, or one of the big reasons, that movie didn't perform better is because I feel like it was right around the time that people were starting to get sick of Russell Crowe. Because he was doing a whole bunch of off-camera antics and stuff like that.
Right.
And he was starting to develop a reputation of being a bit of a jerk or any of that kind of stuff. I contend, other than Daniel Day-Lewis, I think the finest actor of our generation, personally. But that movie is so good. It's so good. And I think it's Renee Zellweger. I think she's the one who co-stars in it with him. That movie is outstanding. And it got to the point that it didn't do very well. And I think, if I remember correctly, Rob, I think the studio even did one of the most unprecedented things where they offered a money-back guarantee on the movie, where they told audiences, I think it was for a week, go see the movie. And if you don't like this movie, we'll give you your money back. I mean, that's just something you don't see because, of course, jerks are going to take advantage of that. And even if they love the movie, they're going to come out and go, yeah, I didn't like the movie, and they get their money back. So it's an unprecedented thing. But that's how much they believed in that film. And that movie is awesome. Anyway, when you look at Metal Vegan's list, were there any of the films that jumped out to you?
Well, it's a good list, but I got to say, Metal Vegan, you only have one movie on that list before 1990, and that's The Exorcist. And there's a lot of movies in cinema history that I would put up there as part of the 10 greatest movies ever made that aren't on your list. And although I do appreciate the fact that you have The Exorcist on there, which is obviously, The Exorcist is still, I think, my favorite horror film of all time. So kudos to that.
All right, Rob. And with that said, this is a good segue for us to let you go because you got things you're supposed to be working on here today. But you will, of course, be back again tomorrow. In the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, and find me on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. And tonight, episode 2 of our new show I'm doing with my girlfriend Elizabeth, Whining About Movies, where we drink wine and talk about a movie. Tonight's movie is With Nail and I from 1986.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here. And, of course, we will see you again tomorrow.
All right, sir.
All right, man. We'll
Stay
talk to you
safe.
later. You too, man. Take care. All right, guys. So we now move on. Where are we at here? We are at, oh, there we are. We're right there. We now move on with the rest of the show. We still got about, you know what? Heck with it. We're all kind of at home right now. So we're just going to keep going on today's show until we get through all the questions. We're just going to keep going until we get through all the questions today because we're all stuck at home. Let's just keep the conversation going. All right. Sam Fisher writes, I watched Age of Adeline, prefer Stardust, but I really like the slight mid-20th century accent that Blake Lively put on for her performance in Adeline. I think it's a choice that works well for the character. It absolutely did. And one of many things about her performance in the film that I thought was amazing. It's an imaginative movie. It's quite original. I can't think of really any other movie that's really quite like it when you look at the plot and how it works out and the whole setting of it. And again, it's just one of those movies, Sam, that made me just fall in love with Blake Lively. She's absolutely wonderful in it, and it was great to see. All right, Justin the Movie Nerd writes, Hey, John, there's a promising new comic out called Strange Academy. It's a school for the magical arts and has introduced great new characters into the Marvel Universe. Would you like to see Doctor Strange teach the magical arts alongside Dr. Voodoo on film? Well, it's hard for me to say because I haven't read the comic. And I don't know much about it. I mean, the whole notion of a school for has been played out a lot between X-Men and between the Umbrella Academy. And there was another show on recently that kind of played into that. And I'm trying to remember the name of the show, but there was another show that was like a school for whatever. But again, I haven't read the comic. My first thought is, Well, Doctor Strange is kind of busy. He's the Sorcerer Supreme. He's got other responsibilities, but whatever. But again, it's too difficult for me to give kind of a thought when I haven't read this comic yet at this point, so I don't know. But thank you for putting on everybody's radar, Justin. That's good for you to do that. All right, Anthony Lucolano writes, today's Blu-ray haul, Sunset Boulevard, nice. Aaron and I were just talking about Sunset Boulevard. Apocalypse Now, the 2-disc special edition, To Kill a Mockingbird, 50th anniversary, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance. Holy crap, man, that is a great haul. That is a great haul, dude. That is some amazing films you picked up, and good on you for getting them. Sunset Boulevard, of course, Aaron and I were talking about that film just last week. Apocalypse Now, one of the greats. To Kill a Mockingbird, I mean, one of the most important films of all time. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, got Paul Newman, Robert Redford. Dude, what a haul. That is awesome. Well done, sir. All right. Justin the Movie Nerd writes. Hold a second. Lost my spot here. Justin the Movie Nerd also writes, in Portland, Oregon, we are following suit with Cali in New York. Restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues over 50 people capacity, including the movie theaters, will be shut down to the public. All of our second-run historic theaters could potentially go out of business. I mean, it's just, it's horrible. It's horrible, not just of like the older movie theaters. Like, there are a lot of indie movie theaters that they're just forced to close for a while. Again, I said last week, it could potentially be catastrophic for the industry. It could be catastrophic. And I have no doubt we're going to see a lot of independent theaters probably have to close their doors as a result of this. Because again, it's not like these movie theaters are a huge profit margin business. They are a razor thin profit margin business. And going out of having to shut down for a while like this could end a lot of them. It could end a lot of them. And it's one of the unfortunate things about this whole situation. Thanks for sharing that, Justin. All right, George writes, hey, John, if you're going to do that play and chat videos, can I recommend the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo? Ooh, that's not a bad idea. It's only about 1 hour or so long, so you would probably be able to knock it out with one video. Then I'm not really sure what the point of doing it. Maybe I'll just wait until it's actually fully out. Love to know your thoughts on it. One of the games, I'm not a big console game player. I'm mostly a PC game player, but I played so much Final Fantasy VII when it first came out. Actually, me and the entire house that I lived in, me and a bunch of buddies lived in a house together a long time ago, and we all played a lot of Final Fantasy VII. I've been very interested in this. I've been reading nothing but good things about the demo that's been put out. I'll probably wait for the full game itself. I think the game I'm going to play a little online poker for when I do playing chats, but I also think I'm going to go back to to Diablo 3. Now that we got Diablo 4 coming out sometime in the future, they've announced Diablo 4. I think I might play a little bit of Diablo 3, but we will wait and see. Good suggestion though, George, but I think I'll wait for the full game to come out. All right. George also writes, one of two. As a kid, my parents never took me to the movies, so there are plenty I didn't experience at the theater. 3 movies I wish I could have experienced at the movies are: number 1, Braveheart; number 2, Terminator 2. Oh yeah. Number 3, Captain America: Winter Soldier. For some reason, I missed that. Dude, yeah. Well, first of all, get up on Captain America: Winter Soldier. But anyway, part 2. One, even though I think I've seen all the other MCU movies at the theater, what are 2 or 3 movies you guys missed at the theaters and I wish that you didn't? And part of this tip, so you don't show your nipples, no exotic dancing, please. A little bit of a reference to yesterday's show, George, trying to keep the rest of the world safe from me taking off my clothes and showing you my nipples, inducing nightmares and therapy needed for everybody. So, a movie I never did get to see on the big screen that I really wish I did. I mean, you're talking about some of the big classics, Lawrence of Arabia is definitely one. The cinematography in Lawrence of Arabia was groundbreaking cinematography. Godfather was one I wish I had seen on the big screen in theaters when it originally came out. That's one that I always talk about too. That's just something about that. One that I'm not the biggest fan in the world of the movie, but when you understand the scope and the scale, is one that I desperately wish I could have seen on the big screen. And that was Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra. That would have been one to see and behold. And then another one that is one of my all-time favorite movies, but I wish I could have seen on the big screen, was Charlton Heston's Ben-Hur. So those are ones that I wish I had seen on the big screen. That would have been good. So thank you for that, George. And don't worry, no nipple slipping on this show for me. All right. T. Ness writes, your thoughts on Picard Season 1? So far, I like it. I got to tell you, man, I know Robert doesn't like it at all, and I respect that. I think it's fantastic. I am loving Star Trek Picard. I'm really, really enjoying it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Christopher Benson writes, my wife and I saw The Invisible Man on Friday night. Attendance at our theater, which is popular, was down 60 to 70%. Concession stand was empty as well. Yeah, I mean, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, Christopher, about, the fact that this was the lowest box office weekend in over 20 years. And quite frankly, like I said earlier, I was surprised it made as much money as it did. Like overall, the box office itself made $55 million, which is more than I thought it would have. But yeah, it's definitely down. And now with theater closures and all that kind of stuff, you're going to see it drop a whole hell of a lot more. But I'm glad you had a chance to see The Invisible Man. I love that movie. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And I'm glad you guys had a chance to see it. All right, Green Arrow 7 writes, have you seen the Adam Driver movie, The Report? You know what? I never did get around to it. It was hyped at festivals and then dropped off. It was amateurishly shot, but good performances and story, in my opinion. And I think that's an example, because I heard really, really big things about it as well. I think it is yet another example of just how strong the movie field was for 2019. The movie field in 2019 was outstanding. And I think that's one of the reasons why it probably did then fly under the radar. But I've heard nothing but good things about it. Jewish Singer 613 writes, don't know if you heard about the Sing Street Broadway adaptation. Supposed to be open March 26th. Was really looking forward to that. Broadway is shut down. Yeah, I mean, again, no surprise. Big theaters cramming a bunch of people into one room like a big sardine right now ain't the greatest idea. I'm sure it'll make a resurgence, though, I'm sure. But again, Broadway is becoming another one of the industries that is really going to be hit hard by this, no doubt about it. The facility guy writes, very proud of Ohio's governor, even though I didn't vote for him. He's been out in front of it since the first positive test, allowing his lead scientist to set policy. Press screenings canceled, capacities halved. We're open but shouldn't be. Safe, be safe, planet Earth. And yeah, it's really neat. Look, I'm not going to get political here. I'm not going to get political here. Okay. This is as far as I'm going to go. Cause on my show, I don't care whether we're politically left or politically right. We're all movie fans here in this house. We're just movie fans. I will say this though. In situations like this, it becomes inspiring when you see certain leaders actually lead. And it becomes very disconcerting when you see people who are supposed to be leaders not lead. And anyway, so I'll leave it at that. How you want to sort that is completely up to you. I'm not trying to make any political statements. I'm just saying, I agree with you. When you're in times like this, like, for instance, I'll tell you straight up front, I am not, and everybody's going to get mad at me for this, but this is as far as I'll go. I'll go into something that's decades old to get into any sort of politics here. But I will tell you this. I'm not a Rudy Giuliani fan. I'm not a George W. Bush fan. But I will tell you what, when the 9/11 incident happened, even now as I look back, and I don't like Rudy Giuliani, but as I look back, that dude, when 9/11 happened, you can think what you want about everything else about the guy. When 9/11 happened, the way that dude was a leader for that city was profound. In that circumstance, at that time, he led. You know what I mean? And he made people feel more at ease, yet never once underplayed the severity of it. I mean, he did a really good job in that time, in that place, in that scenario, leading. And that's just to say that it is in times like this, and in any type of field or industry or time, whatever, when you see leaders actually lead. And it makes it all the more disappointing when you see people who are supposed to be leaders not really leading. But it is what it is, but I'm glad you brought that up, facility guy. All right, Sam writes, I loved what you said the other day about Cap having the best trilogy and having the best character arc. His movies really are the best way to introduce someone to the MCU who would otherwise be uninterested. My girl had only ever seen Guardians. And then Sam writes part 2, and I wanted her to watch Endgame, but she didn't want to watch it unless it would hit her emotionally like it did for me. We watched the Cap trilogy and all 4 Avengers movies, and with a very small expectations, she fully understood the story and fully experienced the emotional impact of the final scene of Endgame. Not only does Cap have the best character arc of all the MCU characters, but he has the best movies, and he might have my favorite character arc of all time. The man who lives who lived his life selflessly, but ultimately allowed himself to make the most selfish decision of all and live out his days with the love of his life that he thought he would never see again. It's beautiful. And Sam, I completely agree. I believe that Captain America, Captain America is my favorite character in the MCU. He's not my favorite comic book character. I'm not saying that, but he is my favorite character in the MCU. And the main reason for that is his overall story arc is the best, most profound, wonderful story arc, I think, in all of the MCU. Tony has a really good story arc as well. There are other characters who have very good story arcs, but Cap's story arc, like going from who and what he was in First Avenger, and then you get through Avengers and things like that, and then you get to Winter Soldier, and you start to see a change in him. How the new world he's in is changing him, and how he's fighting so hard to hold on to his core beliefs while he's being disillusioned about the structures and the institutions around him that he used to be so faithful to. Then you move straight into Civil War, where it comes full circle, and now he believes, because you start with him in First Avenger, and Captain America has these hardcore beliefs, and completely attached to those hardcore beliefs are the institutions in which he serves. You move into Winter Soldier, his belief in those institutions becomes shaken. You get into Civil War, and he believes in order to hold on to his core values, he must rebel against the institutions that's around. It is an incredible story arc for a character. And I love it desperately. And it adds so much. The story of the MCU in many ways is the story of Captain America, I believe. I believe in many ways the story of the MCU up to this point is the story of Captain America. But that's just me. That's just my way of looking at it. Anyway, well said, Sam. All right. Rodney Alexander writes, "Good day to all. John, I just saw in the Apple Store you can now pre-order Bloodshot. Why is this possible, and who regulates when it's available and how much to charge for content?" Well, yeah, listen, that's not new. That's not new. For ages, when a movie comes out, you've been able to go over to Amazon.com and pre-order your home. Like, it doesn't come out for another 3 months, but you've been able to pre-order it well in advance. Why not? See, the idea here is this. While Bloodshot is in theaters, in as many theaters as it's on everybody's mind. And so people, while it's fresh on everybody's mind and everybody's thinking about it, that's when people pre-order. Do you know how many people pre-ordered Endgame when it was in theaters? A lot, because it's big. It's in everybody's face right now. It's being advertised right now. Everybody's aware of it. Hey, this is a time to drop their money and pre-order their home version of it. It makes sense. It makes sense. As far as who sets the pricing, the distributors will have final say as to when you can put things up for pre-sale. And then the pricing of it, I believe, becomes a discussion and agreement between the vendor and the distributor themselves. But I could be off on that. That part I'm a little unclear about. But as far as when you can put things on sale, you got to get the distributor to sign off on that. But it completely makes sense. And it's nothing new. They've been doing this for a long, long time. All right. Rodney Alexander writes, "With digital taking over, why are some movies left out?" Where do we go? Oh, yeah, there we are. Why are some movies left out? Garbage Pail Kids, the movie, I know it was a horrible movie, but it's not listed in iTunes. How can digital take over if you can't find everything? Well, look, that's the thing. By the way, just because you can't find it in iTunes doesn't mean you can't find it somewhere else, right? It could be very much available somewhere else. So let me look this up. Let me look up Garbage Pail Kids, the movie. Garbage Pail Kids movie. Let's see what Garbage Pail Kids, 1987. You can watch it. Oh, where's the list of where you can watch it right now? Oh, I can't remember where the list is of where you can watch it right now. Anyway, I'm going to say this. I would be surprised if there wasn't a streaming service where you could find it right now. Whether it's the Google Play Store or Amazon or Amazon Prime or something. But remember, the digital age is still really just starting. Eventually, in the next few years, everything will be on streaming, but it's going to take time. We're in what I believe is a transition period, right? We're in a transition period where, as a culture and society, and entertainment fans, we are transitioning right now from physical media to digital streaming. Not everybody's happy with that. It has some drawbacks, but it is what's happening. Whether we think it should be happening or shouldn't be happening is a completely different topic. The fact of the matter is it is happening, but we're in that transition. And while we're in the transition, you're not going to be able to find everything. But at some point, it will get there. At some point there, once we get through the full transition, there probably won't be much, if anything, that you can't find digitally in some way, shape, or form. So that's just kind of my guess on that. All right. Edward Wells writes, movie theaters and other gathering places larger than 50 people closed until at least the end of the month in New York City. No chance to check out The Hunt or Bloodshot now. That's true. Now, what will probably happen, I'm guessing what will probably happen is that, they will hold those movies so that when the theaters open, you will then have a chance. When the theaters open back up, you will then have a chance to go and watch Bloodshot and The Hunt. That's my guess about how that's going to happen. It just means that right now you have no options. But I believe we will have those options in just a few weeks or so. Whether it's a few weeks or whether it's a couple of months or something like that, you will get it. We will get that opportunity. It will happen. We just might have to wait a little bit for it. So that's just the main thing there right now. Okay, where am I here? Hold on a second. Sorry, I just got somebody trying to message me here. So I gotta get them back. Okay, next up, that was Edward. So now we're going to move on to Henry Mertens, who writes, saw Sorry to Bother You, and I agree with you, John. It was an amateurish attempt at satire on class issues, very poorly executed. Parasite and Joker did it way better, in my opinion, and Parasite is actually the newest release to make my all-time top 10. Yeah, listen, I'll tell you what. I was very excited. I was very, very excited about Sorry to Bother You. It had a great cast. I was super excited about the cast. I thought the trailers looked fantastic. I did. I thought the trailers looked wonderful. I really did. I thought the trailers looked absolutely wonderful. I was completely stoked, all ready to see it. And I thought Sorry to Bother You was absolute insufferable garbage. I thought it was absolute insufferable garbage. And then, of course, somebody will say to me, well, John, what they were trying to say. I don't care what you're trying to say in a movie. It's great to have a message that you want to communicate. It's great to have a premise you want to communicate. But if you don't execute it, it doesn't matter how good your message is. Because your message gets lost in your own obscurity. The message gets lost if you don't execute it right. And I thought, it was insufferable. I thought the movie was just, I'll flat out say it, and I don't say this about many movies. I try to stay positive about even movies I really dislike. But Sorry to Bother You was flat out unwatchable to me. It's absolutely unwatchable. Especially, and this infuriated me. It came out around in the same season as Spike Lee's Black Klansman came out. And Black Klansman is such, and it's a different movie, but Black Klansman was such a vastly superior film. And then it really pissed me off as a film fan, because then you see the filmmaker of Sorry to Bother You shit-talking Black Klansman. And I'm sorry, dude, but that movie is way better than your movie. Way better than your movie. And I completely agree. When you look at other kind of half satire attempts to make social commentary stuff, Parasite did it way better. Joker did it way better. Now, and I don't know. I think maybe a part of my negative reaction is also my disappointment, because I was so excited for that movie. I was so excited for it. If you guys watch my show, I was so pumped for Sorry to Bother You. And I just, both Ann and I walked out and we were like, what the flying F was that? It was just, it's obscenely bad. Obscenely bad. Now listen. Let me also say this. If you haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, and you've been thinking about maybe checking it out, there are people who really like it. So don't just take me, I can sit here and bitch and moan about the movie. That was my take on it. I really hated it. I wish I didn't, but I thought it was abysmally bad. But also understand, this is a movie that has its supporters. There are people out there who actually really do quite like the movie. So if you're somebody who hasn't seen it yet, you might still want to check it out. Like, I'm just giving you my thoughts on the movie, but don't just take my thoughts on the movie, because understand there are people out there who really did quite enjoy it, and maybe you'll be one of them. And quite frankly, if you spend your time to watch the movie, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you do. I hope you were able to get something out of it that I wasn't. That's the best I can say about it is go check it out for yourself. You might be one of those people that it really worked for. I wish it worked for me, but oh my God, that movie was so bad to me. Anyway. Dumbledore Calrissian writes, "Hey, John and crew. Hello there. Today I started listening to a documentary podcast called Blockbuster. Season 1 goes into Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and John Williams at the beginning of their careers. It is fascinating. Highly recommend it." Listen, dude, I'm always looking for new podcasts to listen to because I listen to a lot of podcasts. That sounds awesome. I've never even heard of this one. I'll be straight up. I haven't heard it. This is the first time I'm hearing about this podcast. I am definitely going to go and check it out. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Dumbledore. I really appreciate that, man. Dumbledore also writes, "I had no idea how much of a disaster the making of Jaws was." Oh, dude, the problems they had on Jaws was crazy. And how much John Williams had to do with his success. Since I'm stuck at home, I think I'm going to go and watch Jaws again this week. One of the great things, like talk about making lemonade out of lemons. Talking about making lemonade out of lemons, right? One of the things we can do and take advantage of is, with so many of us being at home right now and being stuck at home and all that kind of stuff, one of the things we can do, though, to make lemonade out of these lemons is get caught up and rewatch some classics, get caught up on some things that we never saw before, like Age of Adeline or Stardust, and the movies we're going to recommend tomorrow. This is one of the great ways to take advantage of that time, so good on you, Dumbledore. All right, let's see. Orlando Orego writes, "Well, last week, movie theater said it will limit amount of people in seats, but now looks like movie theaters will be closed." Yeah, and by the way, that's not the movie theater's decision. In places like New York and Los Angeles and some other cities, and I'm sure more will follow, the city is taking the discussion out of their hands. It's taking the decision out of their hands, I should say. And they're just passing new city bylaws saying you've got to close for these things. And again, I'm all for, if their theaters want to stay open and they want to, and they try to limit the amount of risk, and they reduce capacity to 50%, and they take these extra sanitizing measures, and people want to still go, that's fine with me. But I also see the shutting them down temporarily as a common sense thing as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, and hopefully we see that these measures will have an important, strong, profound effect on things. So we'll see how these things all go. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, "So every movie except Black Widow is getting canceled. Oh my God, Scorsese was right." Yeah, very little to do with Scorsese, but who knows? We'll see. Like, listen, I know Disney is going to be keeping a very, very close eye on the whole situation and how it's going to transpire. They're deciding not to get ahead of themselves. They're not canceling Black Widow right yet or postponing it yet. They want to wait and see, because listen, if everybody acts really responsibly and we all do engage in social distancing and we all do the responsible thing, well, guess what? We can put this whole nonsense behind us sooner rather than later. And if we do, then it's great that Black Widow still has its release date. So they're probably in a little bit of a wait and see situation right now. All right. Andy Newton writes, "Bonjour, Jean. Been following you." Well, bonjour, Andy. Comment tu? Anyway, been following you since the Collider days. I'm a French dude who travels a lot due to my job as a DJ, and I rarely miss a show. With a lot of us stuck at home, could you reconsider your idea of movie club, debating on older movies together? Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I've been thinking about that. Now, of course, movie club would only be for our Patreon supporters, because when the idea of movie club came around, which I just never had the time to actually do, but what we wanted to do for our Patreon supporters is do this thing called movie club, where each week or once a month, and maybe we should do it once a week now, I would announce, hey guys, our movie club movie this month is going to be Gladiator. And we're going to do movie club on this Saturday, whatever. So now everybody's got a week or a couple of weeks to make sure they watch Gladiator and get caught up on Gladiator. And then what we would do is a big open discussion, a big open spoiler discussion, if you will, about that movie. So I am looking at doing that again, but again, it would only be for our Patreon supporters. It would only be for our Patreon supporters, because I've been promising our Patreon supporters that movie club thing for a while. So if we get around to doing it, that's the way we'll have to do it. it, but it is something I've got on my radar right now, Andy. Thank you for bringing it up. All right, Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco writes, hey, John, when I last sent in a question, you said Ocho Cinco. As much as I'd love to have some pure athletic talent, I am sadly short, white, and Australian. But your actual name is nonetheless Chad Johnson. I thought that was just you paying tribute to like maybe one of your favorite wide receivers. But hey, it happens. There are no celebrities out there with the name John Campea, so that's not something I ever have to worry about. By the way, a friend of mine who actually was the editor on my movie, The Anniversary, a friend of mine who's the editor on my movie, his name is Chuck Norris. That's his real name. That's his birth name. And people would ask him, you ever think about changing your name? And he's like, fuck no, I had the name first. He can change his name. Because I guess Chuck Norris isn't actually Chuck Norris's real name. Chuck Norris, that we all know, I don't believe Chuck Norris is actually his real name. He changed it to Chuck Norris. Whereas my friend Chuck Norris, that's his actual birth name. So anyway, there's that. Okay. Let's see. Brandon Hulsbus writes, they have closed my local mall, which houses both our Showcase and IMAX theaters in Rhode Island. It sucks because this is the closest one to me. They are limiting all business over 25 people to close. Crazy time for movie fans, absolutely. And listen, we understand it's a crazy time for everybody. It's absolutely a crazy time for everybody. But here's the thing. I've been stressing this before and I will stress it again. As wildly inconvenient as this is for all of us, obviously, the more we embrace the inconvenience right now, the more hardcore that we embrace the inconvenience right now, the faster we're going to get this BS behind us. The more we embrace the inconvenience, the faster we'll place this bull behind us and we'll be able to get back to our regular going thing. And hopefully, if we're lucky, it'll be just a matter of a couple of weeks if we all take responsibility for it, make the right decisions, really limit our social interactions, then we can get this thing behind us sooner rather than later. If not, it's going to become a situation like Italy. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But you're right, man. It is for us in our little paradigm of movie fans, it's a tough time. It's a tough time, no doubt. Chad Johnson also writes, I'm using this time to play through Mass Effect for the 400th time. That's a good use of your time, my friend. This game series is my favorite of all time. I know my buddy Dennis, you guys know Dennis then. I know Dennis loves the Mass Effect series. Absolutely loves the Mass Effect series. Do you know if progress on a film or TV adaptation have gained any ground in recent years? I'd love to see what they could do. No, that's one that's been talked about a lot. It's one that's been talked about a lot. But I don't believe there's ever been any actual real concrete forward momentum on it. Again, but this would be a very, very expensive project to make. That's a huge roll of the dice. It's not like Tomb Raider that you could make Tomb Raider for like $40-50 million. Mass Effect would be a massive project. That would take a lot of money. That would take a studio to make a lot of financial risk. So I haven't heard any segue on it yet. Maybe we'll get lucky and we will someday, but I haven't heard of any progress being made lately. Chad Johnson. Oh, that was Chad Johnson. Is this no, it's a new question. New question from Chad Johnson. Okay. New question from Chad Johnson writes, another question because I just can't help myself. What happened to the Chris Benoit film? That's right. Crossface. It was what it was going to be called. I remember your interview with Lexi Alexander a few years ago where you spoke about it. That's the last thing I heard regarding it. Any idea? Yeah. So of course, director Lexi Alexander, she's great. I love her. And she did such a great job on that Punisher Warzone movie. There are people out there who do not like Punisher Warzone. That's cool. I love Punisher Warzone. I thought she did a great job on that as directing it. She was supposed to do a Chris Benoit film called Crossface. For those of you who don't know, Chris Benoit, professional wrestler, WWE wrestler. As a result, it looks like, because when they examined his brain afterwards, his brain was mush. His brain was absolute mush. And they're saying as a result of constant years and decades of massive head trauma that he would take, he went nuts, murdered his wife and his son, his child, who from all accounts he loved dearly, and then took his own life. And Lexi had lined up to direct a film about Chris Benoit. But we all knew, even when she first announced it, that this could be one that never actually does see the light of day. This could be one that never sees the light of day. And from rights issues to how you do it, to be sensitive with it, it looks like it's never come about. I'm going to guess. Now, I haven't talked to Lexi in a while. She and I used to go back and forth a bit on Twitter, but honestly, I haven't spoken with Lexi in a while. My assumption right now is that it's probably off the table. I don't know that for fact. I do not know that for fact. But my guess right now is that it's probably off the table. All right, Orange Hand writes, one of my favorite Simpsons episodes is the softball one with all the Major League Baseball stars. Who do you consider to be the most memorable Simpsons guest star? Ooh. Well, I mean, before I would have said the Michael Jackson one, but it's never been officially confirmed that episode actually was Michael Jackson doing the voice, but damn, it sounded a lot like him. Most memorable one. The Tom Hanks one was great. I would have to, you know what, Orange Hand? I'd have to think about that. Those are two that come to mind right now, but I would have to think about that one. That's a good question. All right. Reggie Wallace writes, been watching for a few months. First live show, big fan. Oh, thank you, Reggie. Thank you for being here and being a part of our community. And thank you for supporting the show as well. And it's awesome to have you here, my friend. Thanks for sending that in. All right. K Major writes, can you start over? Should I be taking notes? And will this be on the exam tomorrow? You're probably talking about that whole virus spreading simulation that we did a little bit through earlier. Professor Campea here to teach. Yeah. Just go back and watch it later. K Major. Will this be on the exam tomorrow? Double Crit writes, jerks are trying to scalp masks and hand sanitizer. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely insufferable. Jerks are trying to scalp mask and hand sanitizer. Got shut down online by Amazon, eBay, etc. due to price gouging law, and all that money wasted. I know. There is nothing worse than people trying to profiteer from a crisis. Nothing worse. No, don't get me wrong. Like, say you're a medical mask company and your business booms as a result of medical masks being needed. Nothing wrong with that. What infuriates me is, like, yeah, now fortunately, Ann and I have like 6 or 7 rolls of toilet paper in the house. That's going to last us quite a while. That said, it's infuriating to me when I look on, and like Rob pointed out best earlier, but when I look at, like, see, stores are out of toilet paper because some idiot goes in there and buys, 85 rolls of toilet paper. It's like, what do you think is happening here? You think there's gonna, like, trees haven't died? Like, if all the trees in the world had died and you don't know how they're going to make more toilet paper ever again in the future, that I would understand. There's going to be more toilet paper. Get what you need right now. And then you see people trying to scalp hand sanitizer and scalp toilet paper. I mean, these are people that, I don't know. I have, let's just say I have a very low opinion of these types of people. All right. Ryan writes, hey, John, I agree with Rob's comments from last week that one of the big reasons for Onward's average numbers was when I watched the trailer, it didn't feel like a Pixar story. It looked like a by-the-numbers animated film, especially when compared to Soul. Well, the thing is, Soul doesn't really look like much right now. I don't think Soul looks like much, although I am fascinated by it. But to a degree, I sort of said the same thing. I don't know how you market Onward. Onward is a really good little film. It pulls on the emotional heartstrings, funny and charming, and it's a really good little film. But the marketing wasn't the best. But to be fair to their marketing department, I'm not sure how you market that film. It was a challenging one. How you market that film without giving everything away. Like, a lot of movies, it's clear how you market them. But there are some movies that then come out where it's, what do you do with them? And I said that before, that I'm not really sure what the best way would have been to market that film. It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. All right. Isaac Majid writes, thanks for being awesome, John. Oh, thank you so much, man. It's always nice when somebody wants to write in just to say something kind. Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Philip Dax writes, have you seen Finding Forrester? What did you think? Yes. And of course, it's got that, I won't give any spoilers away, but it's got a very well-placed cameo at the end because the movie is very much like another movie. So it's got that little cameo at the end. You guys who've seen the movie know exactly what I'm talking about. I liked Finding Forrester. I thought Finding Forrester was actually really good. Chris Warden writes, saw Bloodshot yesterday and really liked it. I'd say if you're a fan of the Fast and Furious and Triple X franchises, you'll probably enjoy this as well. Yeah, I'm not hearing great things about it, but at the same time, last I checked, let me bring it up right now. Last I checked, the Rotten Tomatoes meter was around 50%. So let's see. Bloodshot, Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see what they're saying over there. Last I checked, it was right around 50%, give or take a couple. Ooh, it's dropped more. It's dropped down to 31%. But still, 31% means 3 out of every 10. So if you got 10 film critics, 3 of them said they liked it. So, not great. Not great. And I've heard from some people writing and saying they saw it and they didn't enjoy it, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be, that there aren't going to be people for it. That's the beautiful thing about the subjectivity of film, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, Chris. And that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing if you really buy into the ridiculousness of Fast and Furious, and I love Fast and Furious, and if you like the Triple X franchise, that maybe you'll be more predisposed to liking this one. So I've heard that as well. So thanks for the update on that, Chris. Anthony T. writes, hospitals are worried now. Think about how overloaded they will be 9 months when we have another baby boom. That's right. It's one thing everybody's saying, that a lot of people are going to get pregnant. I mean, everybody's at home now. What else is there to do except get busy? So we may see a big baby boom in a few months. You're not wrong about that, Anthony. Chris Warden also writes, also, while I admit not all the CGI in Bloodshot look great, I was still impressed with what they were able to do on a modest $45 million budget. You know what? That is one thing I'll say for Bloodshot, is that when I first saw the trailer, I thought, okay, you're kind of your typical superhero kind of fare. And then when I saw the production budget of $45 million, I thought, okay. Like, for somebody like me who's always bitching and moaning that Hollywood needs to get their spending under control, that looks pretty good. You're able to keep that to $45 million or less? Not bad. So I haven't had the chance to see it myself yet. I'm hoping to see it soon, but we'll see. All right. Mr. writes, or Mr. L writes, I should say. Hey, John, what about drive-in movie theaters? Isn't that a way we can keep watching new releases? Absolutely. We kind of brought that up a little bit earlier. It's like, oh my God, if only there were more. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of drive-in theaters. I mean, that's just the problem. But that does theoretically kind of solve the issue. That does kind of solve the issue, right? Because you're in your own car, you're isolated. It's the perfect idea. Drive-ins right now is the perfect idea. I just, not everybody has drive-ins around them anymore, which is unfortunate. Chris Hansen writes, sent in a really large super chat. Thank you, Chris, for supporting the channel on that level, dude. I absolutely lit up when you said that Stardust is great. It's based on a game and novel. Rob was talking about that earlier. Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer steal the show. I'm definitely going to go watch that movie tonight. It's so good. It's so good. And look, a lot of you guys for a long time have heard me chirp about Stardust, but now's your chance. You got some time at home. You're bunkering down, doing the social distancing thing, doing your part. Now's the time, my friends. Now is your time to watch Stardust. So I'm glad you appreciate it as well, Chris. I love that. Again, Charlie Cox, Claire Danes. It's the movie that made me fall in love with Claire Danes. Claire Danes in that is just enchanting. Oh my God, she's so enchanting in that. I love this movie, and I'm glad you two do too. Keep spreading the word about it. Guys, check it out. All right, Doug Tarnovian writes, I watched Dr. Sleep last night. Wow, amazing film. Probably the most underrated film of 2019. Other than the fact that they gave the movie a stupid title, but John, that's the title of the book. Doesn't matter. It was a bad title for the movie, and it was just too confusing for a lot of people. The marketing didn't really say what it was. That movie's great. Ewan McGregor's fantastic in it. I thought Dr. Sleep was wonderful. It deserved better. Dark Sky Angel writes, did everyone forget that Stardust is a DC movie? Well, I mean, in a way, yes, in a way. And Rob mentioned that a little bit earlier, Dark Sky, but you're not wrong to point it out. All right, Dim Sum 05 writes, I don't know, Pisces. A one-time only per entire movie run, 7 p.m., Thursday preview night, 2 to 3 hour block, pay-per-view for a first-run movie, generating a cool one-time 5 to 7 million, might be interesting, wouldn't keep the movie from Friday, Sunday box office days in theaters. No, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. It's a lose-lose proposition. Because if you're the movie theater, now you're going to get 20 people watching it in one house for one purchase. And on top of that, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, well, why would I pay $40 to watch it at home if I can just go see it at the theaters tomorrow for 12? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I think, listen, if studios thought that would work, don't think for a second that they don't have tons of people on staffs and accountants and lawyers going over it. Studios are greedy. And if they thought that would actually do well for them, they would do it. They would have found a way to do it by now. They've put in the money, done the research, done the studies. They've looked at it over and over and over again. They've poured over it. If they thought they could make one extra dollar because they're greedy, they would have done it by now. But they haven't, and that says a lot about why I think it's kind of a lose-lose proposition. But who knows, Dim Sum, like as we move forward and circumstances change, maybe it becomes something more appealing later. I don't know. I just don't see it right now, but you never know. You never know. All right, Star Wars Rocks writes, as I live in Europe, specifically in Gibraltar, where the local government has closed all restaurants, so I guess I'm off work for a while as I'm training to be a chef, although I would rather be an actor. Shame we don't have any agencies in Gibraltar, I guess. Well, if it's anything like here, though, and I don't know if it is Star Wars Rocks, here, right now in Los Angeles, for example, all restaurants and bars are closed. However, takeout, curbside, and delivery are still open, so you're still cooking. And listen, this could be a booming time for chefs because when everybody's stuck at home, they're going to want to order some delivery. They're going to want to order some delivery or some takeout, right? So I got a feeling you might still be good as a chef. Where the people I'm concerned about are the people who are going to be like wait staff, bussers, things like that. That's going to be hard. But if you're a chef, you might be busier now more than ever. With more people at home, I think more people are going to be ordering some delivery food. It could be a busy time for you, dude. It could be a busy time for you. All right, Stubble McShave writes, tip for people to spend some time. Fantasy author Brandon Sanders has put lectures from his class on YouTube. It is primarily for book writers. People who are interested in movie storytelling can get a lot out of it as well. He uses many examples from movies. Dude, that's a great idea. Because by the way, I'm with you. I've been using some of my time, although I don't have a lot of free time, but like when I'm laying in bed, getting ready to go to bed at night, I spend a lot of my time lately on YouTube watching instructional videos on a lot of different things. Now, because I'm a tech head, I'm watching a lot of instructional videos on tech stuff, but I mean, this is a great time. Like my wife has been watching some instructional videos on like a bunch of random different things, right? This is a good time. And for people who are really interested in the idea of writing, Stubble, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that with people. I am also called John writes, for some reason, I thought the film you're thinking of for tomorrow is Rat Race or Noises Off Again. Nope, it's not either one of those, but those are two great ones. Those are two great ones. I might have to do Rat Race, but that's not the one I'm thinking about for tomorrow. You'll see, I have mentioned the movie I'm going to bring up tomorrow on our Stuff You Should Watch at Home segment is one I've mentioned before, but not mentioned a whole ton, and it's not Rat Race or Noises Off, but those are good guesses, man. All right, Terry Giordano writes, happy social distancing day. Diamond in the Netflix rough. Danny Collins, that's a good one. Al Pacino, Annette Bening, Jennifer Garner, Bob Caraval, and Christopher Plummer. Have a great day and bring on the Unfilthy for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, and the amount of streaming that's going to be done on Netflix, Amazon Prime, the Google Play Store, Disney Plus, HBO. It's going to be huge stuff. Good time to get caught up. And thanks for the recommendation. I want you guys to send in more recommendations for people. So follow Terry's lead here and send in more recommendations for people. All right. Terry also writes, it would be quite interesting if the NFL draft gave us live phone calls to each and every pick, being there will probably be no fans or players in attendance. What a great new Who Gets to Be a Millionaire reality show. Bring on the filthy. Listen, I've heard other people suggest that, Terry, and I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. Now, this is how popular the NFL is that even the draft, like it's one of the highest rated things on network every year is just the draft. But I'll tell you what, I am all for that idea. Anything that brings it a little bit more intimate and interactive and gives us those real life reactions. Sports is the ultimate reality television. It absolutely is. All right. Mr. Hoover writes, hey, John, 4 questions. 1, have you played Alien Isolation? No. I think Emily Blunt could have been a good audition for Amanda Ripley. Any suggestions, guys? Finally, do you think we could get an adaptation? Finally, do you think we will get any Aliens movies soon? I honestly don't think we're going to get any Aliens movies anytime soon. The Aliens movies have been taking a decline in box office. Now, there are a lot of people who like Prometheus. I didn't. I'm not a fan of Prometheus. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't a fan of it. And then the last one that came out, I can't even remember the name of the last one that they put out, which I didn't think was terrible. I actually got a bit of a kick out of it, but it did not do well at the box office. It did not do well at the box office. We've seen a disintegration in the interest from the movie-going audience in the Alien franchise. So, like, they can keep saying that they're going to do more. You know, they can keep saying they're going to make another one. I just don't see anything on the horizon, and I really don't think they will. It's just a diminishing return situation, so I don't think there will be. They might. Listen, in 2 weeks, they could announce that they're making a new Alien movie. They might, but right now, I think it's going to be a while. I think it's going to be a while before we get another Alien movie, to be honest with you. All right, Canada Rocks writes, the list of 90s action movies was missing one of my most underrated movies, Executive Decision with Kurt Russell and Halle Berry, worth the stream. Did that not also have Steven Seagal? And then that one, I remember they advertised that one, and the advertising for that movie had Steven Seagal heavily, because Steven Seagal was kind of big at that time. So they had Steven Seagal advertised heavily in that movie, and he's only in the movie for like 10 minutes, and then he's gone. So that was kind of fun. But I liked Executive Decision, actually. Jesse writes, forget that John's here. Forget that John's here. Here's $2. Show us the nipple. Nope, not happening. Not happening. I mean, if I get really desperate, maybe I'll have to start simulating pole dancing on my channel and start showing the nipple a little bit. But for now, I'm going to spare everybody that tragedy. I'm going to spare everybody that trauma. I'm going to spare you all that trauma. All right, Chance Strancer writes, in the pantheon of Nolan's filmography, where does The Prestige stand with you? I feel like it's overlooked by his more popular films. I like The Prestige very much. The one thing, and Hugh Jackman's fantastic in it, Christian Bale's fantastic in it, Michael Caine's fantastic, Scarlett Johansson. It's a great movie. If I'm not mistaken, Andy Serkis is even in that, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, the one thing that holds The Prestige down a little bit, in my opinion, was I thought the ending was bad. I never did like the ending to The Prestige. Now, that's okay, because I thought all the rest of the movie leading up to it was really, really good, and I still very much enjoy The Prestige. But yeah, so like for me, top shelf Nolan, I've got Insomnia, I've got obviously Dark Knight, Inception. You know, those are the top shelf to me Christopher Nolan movies. I put The Prestige on the next shelf down. So, and if it had a really strong ending, maybe it'd be up on that top shelf too, but it's still in a very, very good company of films. But yeah, I just say on the next shelf down from the top tier of Christopher Nolan films. That's my opinion anyway. All right. Elijah Anderson writes, hey, Mr. Campea, just rewatched Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners. Magnificent film, talking about Hugh Jackman. So damn good in that. Makes me all the more excited for Dune. However, I am hoping that Dune doesn't bomb, considering the slow, atmospheric nature of the book and the fact that Christmas 2020 is pretty crowded. Hey, listen, you never know. You never know. I think Dune will do well. I'm not expecting it to be $1 billion film, but I suspect it'll do well. I don't think we're going to see a repeat of, say, Blade Runner 2049, right? Where, big property, and obviously that movie tanked. Even though it was quite good, it still tanked. I don't think that that's going to happen. At the same time, I don't think it's going to be like an $800 million blockbuster, but I think it'll do well. I think it'll do well. At least, Elijah, you and me both will keep our fingers crossed. All right, next up, Stubble McShave writes, Some conventions are waiting to cancel until they are ordered to do so by the authorities. The reason for that is because they want to force majeure clause to kick in. I'm not quite sure what that is. It says that if outside reasons forces the organizations to cancel, they get money back. Oh, well, yeah, it all depends on the situation. Like, I understand also not wanting to close if you don't have to, because a lot of these conventions, the companies that put them on will just straight up go out of business if they do. So I understand I get it. If they still have a legal way of keeping it open, then you do. I get it. I do. I don't blame them for that. That's self-survival. I understand. I get it. So you keep it open. But something like say, Comic-Con in San Diego, that's still months away. So there's no need for Comic-Con to get ahead of it and announce closing right now. There's no advantage to that. Wait, see how it plays out. if we get into June and everything is still looking bad, okay, then maybe you got to start thinking about canceling it. But for now, there's no reason to cancel it at the moment, I don't think. All right, last 2 questions of the day, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up. Elijah Anderson writes, hey, Mr. Campea, COVID watch list recommendations. The Prince of Egypt, look at your life through heaven's eyes. I love that song. I love that song in that movie. Anyway, in my opinion, the greatest American animated film and The Road to El Dorado. I got to admit, I'm not a huge Road to El Dorado fan. Not a huge fan of Road to El Dorado. But Lion King is still my favorite animated book. But I do like Prince of Egypt, dude. I do like Prince of Egypt. All right, Jay Master writes, our final question of the day. And then we're going to wrap things up. Jay Master writes, just in and breaking news, Idris Elba tested positive for COVID-19 this morning. He posted this on Twitter. Really? Hold on a second. Let me look this up. Let me just see if that is accurate. And in the news, yeah, Idris Elba is saying he tested positive. So now we got Tom Hanks, Idris Elba, some professional sports players, some foreign dignitaries. Yeah, dudes, it's time to lock it all down. Engage in social distancing, guys. We did the illustration a little bit earlier about how it's really going to help us get because if we think we're all being inconvenienced right now, well, let's just embrace the inconvenience and get this crap behind us. All right, guys, listen, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of it as we get through all this kind of crap together around celebrating storytelling, around celebrating the movies and shows that we love and embrace. And guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back again, of course, again tomorrow. I got some special videos coming a little bit later today too, guys. Keep your eyes open for that. And we will be back again tomorrow talking about all the other stuff going on and topics you guys send. By the way, guys, don't forget, if you want to get a topic or question as one of the main topics here on the show, I can't guarantee it'll get on, but if you want to try to get one of your topics or questions as a featured topic here, just go over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact, fill out the form, hit submit, and you got a chance. I'm not saying you will, but you do have a chance to see your topic or question as one of the featured topics here on the John Campea Show. Otherwise, you can just use the tip link below in the top line of the description of this video. You can use that tip link, send in the question 24/7, and we'll get around to your question the very next show that we do, all that kind of stuff. And guys, listen, for the remainder of the week, maybe even next week, we're just going to do the show as long as it takes to finish every show because we're all home. We got things, we're looking for ways to hang out with each other, spend our time. We're going to keep every show that we do every day as long as it takes to complete, like we did today. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. Again, me and Robert will be back again tomorrow. Hope you'll plan to join us. By the way, guys, once you're here, if you want to help out the channel, do me a favor. Takes no effort. Click that thumbs up button. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this type of programming. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Keep up to date with everything we got going on here on the channel. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of it. Stay safe. Engage in social distancing. Let's get this bullshit behind us as fast as we can. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.